Welcome. I call to order the business meeting of the Cave Creek Unified School District Governing Board. It's Monday, November 15th, 2021, and it's 6 o'clock. Item 1.2, roll call. All 5 board members are present. Member Walker is here telephonically. Member Walker, can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, good. Thank you. So there is a quorum. Present from the leadership team, Dr. Monroe, Dr. Jensen, Ms. Rodriguez, and Mrs. Scott. Item 1.3, formal adoption of the agenda. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded to adopt the agenda.
There's 2 items I'd like to pull out, 5.5 and 5.8.
And
Okay.
Member Hatcher, I would also like to pull out of action consent 5.1, 5.4, and 5.7.
Okay. So we have a motion on the table to adopt the agenda as amended. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded to adopt the agenda as amended.
Where are we going to put these?
We'll put them after action consent. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. The agenda is adopted as amended. Item 1.4, call to fill out forms for call to the public. I know we have some, so an admonition will be read in a few minutes. Item 1.5, Pledge of Allegiance. Is Taylor Walker here from Sonoran Trails?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Taylor. Item 1.6, President's Report. I attended a staff recognition breakfast a couple weeks ago, and that's always nice to hear what the staff members are being recognized for, and nice to have a chance to chat with them. Last week I went to the girls volleyball quarterfinals where they beat Arcadia, and then to the Black Mountain Veterans Day celebration, and that's always so touching to go to hear the students sing and then to see all the veterans parade around those hallways. It's really a fantastic event. I also attended Carefree's Veterans Day celebration, where 2 of our students, Keegan Smith and Monet Emery of Cactus Shadows, sang the Star Spangled Banner and God Bless America. And Cactus Shadows teacher Brett Leinberg spoke about the Veterans Heritage Project, and they had kind of a little booth set up there, and there were students and the volumes with the stories about the vets. So that was really neat, too. Our district was well represented at that event. And that's my report. Board members. Anybody?
Yes. I attended the Coffee with the Superintendent event that was held over at Desert Sun Academy. That was back a month ago, October 15th. And our next upcoming Coffee with the Superintendent is this Friday at Desert Willow, and I encourage parents and community members to attend. It goes for an hour. You can come for 20 minutes and get a free cup of coffee, get a few minutes to talk to Dr. Monroe and some of the leadership team, and I encourage parents and community members to attend because that's a neat little event, and you get almost some one-on-one time with some of the people here in the district, so that's good too. I also attended the Cactus Shadows girls volleyball event match last Tuesday when they beat Arcadia, and congratulations to them on their season. Didn't quite end how we wanted it to, but nevertheless they had another great season. Attended the last 2 varsity football games. The Desert Mountain game was a crushing loss in overtime, but they rebounded very well and took care of business last Friday against South Mountain. So good luck to the varsity football as they move on to the first round of the playoffs this Friday down at Horizon. So, and then I'm one other event I'm looking forward to. It's the employee breakfast of the month, and that's coming up on Wednesday morning. So that'd be my first time in our little board rotation for me to attend that. So I'm looking forward to see that and meet some of the staff members that will be there.
Thank you. Anything?
I went to senior night last Friday, and it was, as Member Brown mentioned, it was a resounding victory, and congratulations to all of our senior football players who've put in a lot of blood, sweat, and tears to have a great season.
Member Walker, do you have anything you'd like to add?
I will also be at the breakfast on Wednesday, which is always nice to recognize teachers and staff of our schools.
Okay, thank you. Item 1.7, Superintendent's Report. Dr. Monroe.
President Hatcher, members of the board, first I'd like to tell the board and the audience happy Thanksgiving. Hope people take some time away with their loved ones, with their family and friends, and enjoy the first holiday of the holiday season. As you know, as the board is aware, our locally supported bond election did not pass. 751 votes separated the yes and the no. There were more than 21,000 votes cast. That was the second highest percentage of voter turnout for the election in Maricopa County, second only to Fountain Hills, which only had about 8,000 votes cast. Out of the 34 ballot initiatives, more or less, in Maricopa County related to education, it appears that 24 passed and 10 failed, and we were one of those 10. First, I'd like to thank our governing board. I'm thankful that our governing board approved the bond election. I know it was not an easy decision, was not taken lightly. Living in a state that is ranked 48th in the country for education funding with severe cuts to capital funding over the past 8 years, bond elections are inevitable. I appreciate our board being committed to not only serving our current students and families, but also working and being proactive to look to the future. Second, I'd like to thank all the parents, the teachers, the community members who supported the bond and shared the facts. Third, I want to reassure everyone, even though the bond did not pass, we are planning and we will do our best to adequately prepare for our present and our future. And there's many possible options, and we'll do our best to be creative and find solutions to the challenges that are ahead. This week is American Education Week. Although we strive to celebrate education every day in our schools, I just wanted to take a moment to recognize all the people that make the magic of education happen in our district. It starts in the morning with our bus drivers, bus aides, mechanics, our transportation staff. Throughout the day, it goes to our office staff, our custodians, our plant managers, our grounds crew, our teachers, staff, our principals, psychologists, speech language pathologists. I'm sure I'm missing some. Our paraprofessionals, our substitutes, our nurse and our medical assistants, our counselors. To all these individuals, our social worker and our administrators, from me to you, I'd like to say thank you. Thank you for caring, and thank you for dedicating your life to this work. Officially, we unveiled our Kiwanis banners on October the 14th. The banners are hung up at every school. You may have seen them. I am proud of these banners. They represent and showcase the cooperative effort and support that we receive from Carefree Kiwanis for our students in our schools. Just in case you are not aware, each year Kiwanis donates tens of thousands of dollars to support a multitude of programs for our Ccusd students. We could not do it without them, and we're very proud to partner with them. And I'm hoping that the banner captures that spirit that's hung up around our district. Member Brown and Member Busby stole a little bit of my thunder, but just some of our athletic successes. Our Cactus Shadow golf teams had a wonderful season. The girls team finished third in the state. Golfers Chloe Tarkany and Paige Hammerstrom, they tied for sixth place overall. The boys team had two golfers qualify for state, Alex Herkamp and Charlie Allen. We are proud of our golf teams. Swim and dive finished up a strong season at state. Madeline Bachmeyer, you may have seen on social media, repeated her state championship win from last year and received first place in the 200 individual medley and the 100 backstroke. We congratulate Madeline on her amazing accomplishment, and we also wish her the best of luck as she is headed to swim next year at Miami University in Ohio. The Lady Falcons, as Member Brown mentioned, finished their volleyball season on Thursday as they took on Horizon High School in the semifinals of the state volleyball tournament. Although they were defeated in a hard-fought game, they gave it their all, and we are very, very proud of that team, and we congratulate them on a very successful season. We'd also like to congratulate Ella Lattin and her unified partner, Caleb Lattin, for taking home a gold medal in the Unified Special Olympics golf tournament last weekend. We'd also like to shout out to Sierra Hemming and her unified partner, Casey Brown, for winning silver. Just a few more. The boys and girls cross-country teams had wonderful showing at state this past weekend. Our girls placed 6th. The boys took 8th, with senior Jason Lundgren placing 5th. And boy, can Jason run. And as you're aware from Member Busby and Member Brown, our football team is in the first round of the playoffs this Friday. We'll be cheering them on in round 1 against Horizon. Now, I also want to let the board know that our Sonoran Trails Middle School has also received various accolades with regards to athletics in the North Valley Middle Level Conference, Deer Valley, Cave Creek, something like that, Mrs. Sereno. But shout out to our cross country. Our girls were champions in cross country at the middle school level. Our boys took 3rd place. Our volleyball teams, for the girls and the boys, all of them reached the finals. Our 7th grade boys were champions. Our 8th grade girls were champions. So that means our 7th grade girls and our 8th grade boys were also runners-up and 2nd place. So we congratulate our Stinger student athletes and their accomplishment. If you were on social media in October, you noticed we made a concerted attempt to show off our principals. October was our National Principals Month. We're very proud of our principals. We're proud of their heartfelt leadership and what they do day in and day out. Sarah Barella, Jill Sereno, Aaron Bagwell, Emily Hill, Aaron Patnato, and Matt Owsley. So these are critical leaders in our district, and we tried to shout from the rooftops in October that we celebrate and appreciate each one of them. Now, earlier today, a school calendar survey was sent out to our parents and staff. At the next board meeting in December, we plan on bringing a well-thought-out and well-studied 3-year cycle of school calendars for 22-23, 23-24, and 24-25 school years. It's important to explain the reasons behind the adjustments made in the options and the committee's recommendation, and those are in the survey as someone reads them. There's 3 primary reasons. First, we do everything because of student success. That is our focus, student success and academics. Second, as the committee's been looking at the calendar, they've been looking at student, staff, physical and mental wellness and well-being. And third, they've been looking at embedded professional development for all our CCUSD staff. So we value the opinions of our families, our staff members, and we hope everyone will take that survey in the next 2 weeks. I've been able to spend some time at the theater, which I love. Shout out to Mr. Cuppo and cast at Cactus Shadows High School for Treasure Island. Was a wonderful performance. I felt like I was that older person in the theater laughing when everyone else was quiet, but I understood the pirate humor. It was wonderful, and thank you, Mr. Cuppo, for a great show. Not to be outdone, a week later, I went to the Adventures of the Very Unmerry Robin Hood performance from Black Mountain Elementary School, and Mr. Owsley, and boy, some talented elementary students to put on that show. Again, I kind of felt like that guy in the theater that my daughter used to nudge and say, "Dad, don't laugh out loud. You're the only one." But it was also a great show. Finally, Grant the District. Many of you are aware that we have a program from our Cave Creek Unified Education Foundation called Grant the District. We gave away $25,000 to 15 of our teachers across all 7 of our schools. It was great. We rode the school bus. And we did a little Publishers Clearinghouse moment where we surprised them in the classroom with one of those large checks, which seems to be on everyone's bucket list at one point, to win a large check, because what do you do with that thing? But it was really special. It was so special to help those teachers feel valued, and for the foundation to be able to grant them those projects. And then last week, as you're aware, I'm so proud of our district. We celebrated our Veterans Day. Whether you drove by a school that had flags up or you were on social media, I'm very proud of the many events that I was able to go. Thank you to our parents, our staff, our principals for helping our younger generation understand the importance of Veterans Day and our veterans and the men and women who serve. And that's my report.
Wow. Thank you.
I know. It is a lot.
Stuff.
It is a lot. A lot of good stuff.
Item 2, presentation of awards for schools and departments. 2.1, Sonoran Trails Middle School Excellence Awards, presented by Dr. Court Monroe and Mrs. Jill Sereno.
Okay, we're taking the show to the floor here. So I've been told that this may be an authentic recognition, so this will be really neat. But this is probably my favorite part of the meeting, when we get to take a moment and pause and recognize the wonderful teachers, students, and community members who make our schools great. So tonight we're going to highlight some of those individuals at Sonoran Trails Middle School. Jill, you can come on up. Okay, so first I'd like to call up, and yes, I'm going to read about them and highlight them in front of everyone, but student Taylor Walker. Taylor, come on up. Come on back up. Congratulations. Did you know? No. You didn't know. She just thought she was coming to do the pledge. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So Taylor, okay, you gave that to her. Let me read this about you, okay? Taylor Walker is the kind of student you want to duplicate 1,000 times over. She works with students in our PALS classroom daily, without reservation, without judgment. She approaches everyone with dignity and respect. Taylor has this gentleness about her that makes others feel safe and cared for. She's always willing to step up to a challenge, even when it pushes her from her comfort zone. As student council president, Taylor works hard to guide our representatives, as well as refine her own leadership and communication skills. Taylor is a leader who motivates and inspires others by her actions, and she will have a big impact on our world as an adult. Congratulations. Okay, next I'd like to call up one of our volunteers, Tim Henderson. Tim has spent countless hours volunteering to help coach the 7th grade boys volleyball team this season. As you heard, the team finished as conference champions, and obviously Coach had a lot to do with it. We saw firsthand his incredible coaching technique on display during practice and in games. He has an easygoing coaching style and a great rapport with our student athletes. In games, he would also make sure everyone contributed while showing respect and impeccable sportsmanship to the opponent as they finished the season undefeated. Tim was so gracious with his time and sharing his knowledge of volleyball. He was at every practice teaching the boys the fundamentals and love of the sport, never once losing his patience. Oh, is that true? Which is not easy when you're working with middle school boys, it says. His goal was to foster an appreciation for the sport and ensure that the boys had fun. Tim taught the boys the importance of sportsmanship, how to win humbly and lose gracefully. I think our professional sports could use that, huh? Tim epitomizes what it means to be part of one team. He wants the best for the betterment of the whole. His goal is to not only teach our kids how to be good volleyball players, but be good people all around. His dedication and commitment to not only Sonoran Trails, but kids in this district is noticed and greatly appreciated. Thank you, Tim, for a job well done. Congratulations. All right, and our teacher, we'd like to call up Shelley Niffen. Shelley Niffen is not only dedicated to her ELA, that's English Language Arts classes, but understands the importance of being a true leader on campus. Mrs. Niffen has been instrumental in developing a productive work environment by serving as a teacher leader on campus, being a tech cadre leader, hosting clubs, and going above and beyond for all students and staff on campus. She's a true model of great character and has high expectations for learning. She has a belief that all students can achieve at high levels, empowers all students to achieve to their full potential, and designs her lessons in a way that inspires excellence in all. Her classroom management and her ability to truly engage students has helped to develop new teachers as they're able to observe her in action. Shelley's innate ability to engage students has attracted many adults to her classroom on numerous occasions to observe her practices in action. Her willingness to mentor and progress teachers truly has a great impact on students at our campus. In addition, she hosts 2 separate clubs, offering additional opportunities for students at the middle level to figure out what they'd like to do in this world and follow their dreams and passion. Lastly, With her hands-on approach to the fascinating world of reading and writing, she truly catapults her students to not only understand students, but actually apply those learnings in real-life situations. She inspires all of her students and staff to be the best that they can be all around. She's a true inspiration, and people marvel at the ease in which teaching comes to her. Congratulations.
Okay, thank you. Item 2.2, One Team Joint School Goal Presentation, presented by Dr. Patty Jensen, Mrs. Nancy Scott, Mr. Matt Owsley, Mr. Aaron Bagwell, Mr. Aaron Pettinato, Mrs. Emily Hill, Mrs. Jill Sereno, and Mrs. Sarah Barella.
Thank you. President Hatcher, Vice President Fortney, members of the board, it is a pleasure to share with you just a glimpse of the greatness among our leaders here in Cave Creek. And so with that, I'm going to invite all of our leaders who are ready to present up here with me to share our One Team Joint Schools presentation. The purpose of our presentation, there it goes. Is to inform the governing board and the public about the continuous improvement school the continuous school improvement planning process in Cave Creek through school goals. So we're constantly conducting needs assessments in everything we do. We collect data through surveys, assessments, observations, and sometimes formal audits or program evaluations. The data that we gather in those needs assessments then forces us to ask questions. And as we ask questions, we then develop goals to respond to them. And in those goals, we use them to communicate our priorities. I know we've said multiple times, if we focus on everything, we focus on nothing. We use those goals to help us measure progress each year. And we also use those goals to motivate and inspire us towards continuous improvement. Now, even with strong individual goals, we can work in our own individual schools and departments and not make forward progress as an organization. I've shared this slide many times with staff members across the district, and we use it frequently to show that instead it's important that we align our goals as opposed to the image of the arrows on the left where everybody has a goal, they're just going different directions. Instead, we want to align our goals so that we're all moving in the same positive direction. There it goes. In our next slide here, we have our now famous one team mantra. In union, there is strength. You've been hearing this consistently over the past several months. We're working together so that we can be stronger together. This image of the crew team on the left represents great strength and discipline in working together. If one person is not aligned in just the slightest bit, the boat turns. A more local example on the right, anyone who's ever coached youth soccer knows this, that young soccer players can be a great example of how we can all have even the same goal. They all know most of the time where the goal is. But anyone who's ever actually watched or coached the game knows that in their best efforts to score that same goal, the student athletes, or the little kids in this case, end up working against each other because they don't know how to work together yet. When they do score a goal, it's almost in spite of themselves rather than because of themselves. Similarly, as we teach them how, they get closer to reaching their goal. I think you can draw the connection. Professionalism. So I've created this image here to show a bit of an umbrella where we have, for those of us who have more maybe of an analytical brain than the images previously, this image shows how everyone's goal in our entire organization falls under our strategic plan, which at this point is still in draft form, so that we're all working in the same direction and toward the same end result, which is an outstanding graduate who is equipped to engage in a global society. As we get closer to that student, the goals become more specific and more focused. So it's important to note they start out broad and then they go more specific as we get closer to the student. So this evening, we're going to share with you the 5 major themes that are running throughout all of our school goals. We intentionally chose to have all of our principals present together because we're all working together. Each leader is speaking to one theme, and you will find bits of all 5 themes in all of our campus goals, our department goals, and our teacher goals. In a sense, this is a continuation, if you remember in October, from Mrs. Barella's Cognia presentation, because the findings in that report can be applied to each of our schools and departments since everyone feeds into and supports our high school. So at this point, I'm going to pass it to our principals who are going to share each bit.
So looking at longitudinal data from benchmarks and state testing, variability in scores from school to school, grade to grade, and class to class speaks to a need for increased curricular consistency. The conditions of the past few years and an increased awareness of school choice opportunities has changed the enrollment practices of many families. Research shows that families with a higher socioeconomic status tend to participate in school choice options more than other demographics. Therefore, Ccusd schools are challenged with a higher than average student movement to and between schools. This movement, along with staffing challenges, requires that we focus on creating consistency between our schools to ensure that these student transitions do not come with a loss of learning, often associated with school transfers. By focusing on what we are teaching, how we are measuring proficiency, and solidifying our responses to that data through professional learning communities or teacher collaboration, our teachers are ensuring that we have greater alignment of teaching and learning from site to site. Furthermore, these efforts are being supported by our district through the dedicated time to this work and a refocusing on the researching and purchasing of high-quality instructional materials.
All right, so improving student academic achievement and outcomes. This obviously is our primary purpose as a school, is to increase these student achievements and create environments to foster student learning. And obviously we are held accountable to state testing, so we want to make sure that we're increasing this. So how are we going to do this? Well, we're going to create professional learning communities, which are dedicated time for our teachers to come together as an entire district across grade levels to discuss student learning and outcomes. Professional learning communities really come down to 4 questions. What do we want our students to learn? How do we know the students have it? What do we do with students who have shown they have it? What do we do with students who've shown they haven't had it? So to get us started, we are going to have super laser-like focus on those standards and prioritize those anchor standards to create an agreed-upon pacing guide that will travel across all schools. And then we're going to have creating common formative assessments where the grade level comes to consensus as to what mastery looks like. By doing this, it allows us to have good conversations over student achievement and be able to discuss possible interventions and or extensions to ensure that every child feels successful and meets their potential and their goals.
Next up, we have enrollment. Obviously, why is because, we have a great product in Cave Creek. Historically, we've been the leading district in terms of student achievement in Maricopa County. And so first and foremost, we want our product to reach more students. Not only that, but we've heard countless times that our capture rate is 53%. Well, that's just not good enough. We need to increase that number, and in order to do that, we need to become a part of the community. And we all know that enrollment drives funding, and if we increase enrollment, we increase funding, and if we increase funding, then we increase our opportunities that we're able to give to kids. Our district has always done more with less, and it's because of the people, not the programs. However, how we're going to do this is, first and foremost, we're going to control our narrative. We're going to share our story and our many successes. We've been really active this year on social media, and I know that this week we have an upcoming training. We are also going to improve upon our current preschool and kindergarten programs. We have outstanding preschools at every single elementary school that offer our students the opportunity to engage in our special area classes, which most other preschools can't boast. We also have a really aggressive kindergarten campaign starting up in January, where we're going to be offering monthly on-site events for prospective families. But really what it comes down to is creating moments for families, because we know in Arizona we're a school choice state. And so families, just like anything else, when they shop, they look at reviews, They look at ratings, but most importantly, it's word of mouth. So we have to start internally on what we're doing with our campus, because we need to turn our families into our marketers, because when they go out into the community and they share all the great things that we're doing in the classroom and outside of the classroom, that's what's really going to boost enrollment quickly. But not only that, but we're going to be strengthening our community right along those transition years. So 6th to 7th, 8th to 9th, and so forth. I know Mrs. Sereno was on my campus last week. She's visited all the campuses, so just really being more visible.
And our why for strengthening and supporting teachers and staff can only happen when we have the best teachers in front of kids. We know we currently have excellent teachers in Cave Creek, but we need to support our teachers when they enter the profession so that they stay in the profession and they stay here with us. It'll have a positive impact on the success of our students. So we are working to ensure funding for a well-established induction and mentoring program. It's vital to the continued success of our district. In addition to supporting teachers new to our district at the start of the school year, we've implemented a new teacher induction program to support teachers through their first 3 years of teaching, thanks to a generous grant from the Kiwanis Club of Carefree. We're training mentor teachers on each campus to support and become instructional coaches. All of our training for this program is based on observations and a needs assessment completed by both the mentor teachers and the new teachers to exemplify job-embedded professional development. Our other professional development opportunities, like the work done on our early release days, is designed to improve student learning outcomes and increase teacher effectiveness.
And our fifth theme is to recruit and retain special education staff. As you know, nationwide, there is a shortage of special education teachers. And so consistency and collaboration are what's needed for all teachers, but specifically our special education teachers so that they can feel part of that group. Our students are going back and forth between general education and special education, so that collaboration piece is very necessary. As my colleagues here have stated, the professional learning communities, the mentoring programs that we offer here are what will support and hopefully keep our teachers here.
So then I get to highlight just one more time that in order to be consistent with our 5 elementary schools as well as the high school to my left here, constant communication occurs through many avenues. Weekly to bi-weekly discussions amongst administrators, counselors, and eventually we're going to do vertical articulation with our teachers, all of them this spring. Meanwhile, horizontal articulation occurs weekly within our teams and departments at Sonoran Trails with the following common expectations. Our teams and departments work in collaborative teams and take collective and individual responsibility for student learning. Departments plan collaboratively in the professional learning communities that we heard earlier about, and they implement lesson plans reflecting the Arizona State standards using common learning targets, common formative assessments, or CFAs, and all data that drives our instruction. All staff fosters a purposeful culture that gives students opportunities to identify, demonstrate, and grow in mental health awareness with the support from our school counselors. All teacher-delivered evidence-based, differentiated, engaging, and rigorous instruction, including learning targets, assessment, whole and small group instruction. Student learning is monitored through regular and ongoing assessment data review weekly, including common formative assessments and benchmarks in all core areas. And then teams provide systemic interventions and enrichment through daily tiered instruction through our Stinger Success and small group instruction in the classroom. We've shared with you the higher level themes, but we also wanted to give you a few samples of what some of these goals may look like at the campus level, and those are right there on the screen for all of you to see.
As you remember, I shared the Cactus Shadows Cognitive Report and our school goals at our October board meeting. Our goal for this presentation was not only to share with you the process we are using to ensure continuous improvement in Cave Creek Unified School District, but also to make it abundantly clear that all of our campus goals have same themes and that we are focusing on developing our students into Falcons who are equipped to navigate a global society. We have all used data to set our goals, which guide our daily behaviors and choices, and we then consistently reflect and refine because we will never settle with good enough.
And as we wrap it up and come full circle, as you can see, we've made a concerted effort to align all of our goals under our district strategic plan and Dr. Monroe's goals. By nature, the closer that we get to the student, the more focused and specific the goal will be. As Henry Ford said, if everyone is moving forward together, then success takes care of itself. Thank you, and any questions?
Questions? I do have questions. Okay. First of all, this sounds really good because obviously everybody has to focus on what their particular sites need, but yet you have this holistic approach too. So and the integration. So it really sounds good. Questions. And some of them I've asked before, either of Dr. Monroe or actually here publicly too. Do the staff realize the reasoning behind the perception of, and I wrote down doing the same thing, and I really don't mean doing the same thing, but the commonality, do they recognize that it's not a punishment, for example, for seasoned teachers, but yet there is a goal, that everybody is striving for? And so, am I making sense at all?
Yes, President Hatcher, I think that makes great sense. And maybe Mr. Owsley can speak to this in just a second. But one of the things, I think that the challenge, yes, we've shown, like I said, that arrow slide, everyone has seen that so many times. I know there's a lot of teachers out there, and they should be nodding their heads. Yes, I've seen this arrow slide. However, sometimes it does take a while to understand, especially if you've been doing something and it's been working for you and you've been having success, and you don't see what happens to that child when they transfer schools or when you're out for 6 weeks or whatever else may happen. But let me have Mr. Owsley talk from the trenches.
Thank you. All right, so I just would add just a little bit to that. So we've had the opportunity to be inside the rooms when they've had this collaboration going on. So I've been blessed to be with the first grade team. So I was not a very successful first grade teacher, so now I'm learning a lot a little bit too late. But we get this opportunity to sit and kind of watch this process. And absolutely, when we first started, I would say that there were more questions and people might not have fully understood those pieces. But watching the work that they have put in over these past few times together, I see that growing. A lot more conversation surrounding what we're learning and how we're going to measure it. And then also getting into some of those the extensions and remediation practices and things like that as well. And so we're just kind of on this journey together. Blessed to also be at a school that has been doing this kind of a process for a number of years. So we've got to see it, and I'll tell you that it does take a little bit of time. And being this long into it, even the people who first weren't really sure, it's just what we do now. And teaching is way too hard to do it on your own. So this provides that the ability to be able to lean on someone else because it's just too hard to do it by yourself.
So, Mr. Owsley, your staff has buy-in. You've been doing it for a number of years, so they buy into it.
Well, they tell me they do.
Yeah.
So we've been doing it. I think the first time we took a trip down, it was a lot of people from my school took a trip down to the Vail School District to look at a program that they were doing and some of the practices that they had. We went down there, I think it was maybe 8 years ago or so. And so it's been a longer process for us. We did bits and pieces and just kind of learned together and which parts we can put in place. I'm a slow learner, so it took me a number of years, but my teachers have done awesome. They didn't need any talking into it for this year. They were ready to go.
Mm-hmm. And I think just as far as the secondary level goes, I think it's pretty exciting for us who now we have the common state standards. Then we go into the common formative assessments where we're giving the same quick 3 to 5 question quiz. Then we come back together, we look at that assessment. Then we come together where we collaborate and we get to say, hey, your kids did really, really pretty good on, that standard. Mine did not. What are you doing that I could be doing? And that's where we get back to at the secondary level. Well, every level. Sorry, guys. The data does drive our instruction, and it has to in order to ensure that the students are mastering those state standards so they're prepared for then the next level.
Thank you. somebody had said create a pacing guide. Does that mean, are we doing away with BT, using that as a pacing guide? Because I thought that was one of the primary things about it Beyond Textbook is it provides a pacing guide.
Yes. Okay, so President Hatcher, I'm going to have Mr. Bagwell answer that one because he mentioned the pacing guides. But we do, in the elementary, we do use the BT calendars. And at 7th and 8th grade, I believe, they also use the BT calendars. At the high school, we have not yet made a commitment one way or the other. That is being explored and investigated. But it is just different vocabulary. But Mr. Bagwell, you want to mention it?
Yeah, so wasn't necessarily saying it's a scripted pacing guide, but I've been blessed to work with the second grade teachers across the entire district, an amazing group to work with. And the powerful piece of that is, hey, we're meeting in 3 weeks. Let's all have this done, so that when they do come back together, they have a common set of data that they can talk to. So they may get there in different pathways, but at the end of the day, they've taught the same things, they've given the same assessment, and they can speak to that. So that's what I was meaning by pacing guide, is that, hey, we're all going to, instead of I'm going to do this and you're going to do that, we're all going to teach the same thing, and then we're going to come back together and discuss it. So that's what I was able to see working in second grade.
Thank you. And then one more. The teachers that are experienced in particular, are their voices being heard? All teachers, but really the ones that have been here a long time and are successful, are they being listened to, or is this strictly a top-down approach?
Okay, President Hatcher, I'm going to ask Mr. Owsley to answer that one again. The one thing I will preface it with is, again, we all sit in a different grade level for those particular half days, and so it is different, and in each of those groups, we've come up with ways to come to consensus, and we all have ways of agreeing and disagreeing professionally. Mm-hmm. And so sometimes somebody might not love the answer, which means they just give us a thumbs to the side, or it depends on the group of how they express that. But it's usually something they can at least live with. But I'm going to let them answer.
So just to add to that, so a good majority of Black Mountain teachers have been around for a long time. And so we've, and I meant that in a good way. So, but they're really talented people. And so their voices are being heard very strongly within this. But what I've also noticed is that a lot of our teachers, especially as we built better relationships, because as we've had more time together and being more open to each other and their ideas, there's been a lot more sharing of ideas. And so even schools where they're just now starting to focus on it, mm-hmm. at least in the experience that I'm having with the group that I am, they're all picking each other's brains, even if it doesn't matter how long they've been in. So I've seen kind of both sides of it, but everybody is sharing, and I think they're really enjoying that part of the practice now.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I'll pass it down if anybody wants to go next. But to answer your question, when the approach that I'm using with second grade is I'm actually giving it right to them. So they're making every single decision. And so really I'm just facilitating the conversation. I put a standard up there and say, hey, does this assessment match that? And then they discuss and come up with the decision that they want to come up with. So it's pretty powerful to hear those conversations going on. And matter of fact, the last one we met, they actually chose somebody who's going to be almost taking over the role that I was taking, so they're going to have complete and utter control over it, and that's kind of I'm there for support. You need district or, admin support, I'm there to help you, but for the most part, it's theirs.
Yeah, thank you.
And I could just add a little bit. I'm actually working with 6th grade, so there are a little bit of perspective from the older teams. And whether or not teachers teach the standard is not even an us decision. I mean, that's the state tells us that they have to be teaching those state standards. But watching the more experienced, I'm not going to call them old like some people, teachers, work with some teachers who are newer to the grade level or new to the profession and be able to share resources or share tips about how to engage students in different lessons has been really rewarding. And they have definitely taken that on their own to even create some shared folders and shared drives, and kind of what Mr. Bagwell was just referring to, some teacher leaders within the group have now taken on to help facilitate the work at our future meetings. So it's nice to see.
Thank you.
I would add from the high school, we're kind of in like the beginning stages of all of this. So we started with a common syllabus for, say, Algebra 1, English 1. So everyone kind of has the same expectations with retakes and late work and whatnot. And then we started just with one common formative assessment per quarter and then a common summative assessment. And it was a big ask. And so teachers came, with lots of questions. And so I said, you can have 10 common questions. It doesn't have to be, a 25 question test, just 10 common questions that address the same standards to talk about, and then you can still have your own piece on the side if you want to do that. We have our fine arts who developed a rubric that they're using, a performance rubric that they can use, and they're also sharing it with the middle school as well. So definitely listening to their voices, made some adjustments, and so we just have something to start with that we can continue to grow and develop.
Thank you.
I did have a question that kind of came up. I was thinking about while you all were talking. As a teacher, current teacher, and special ed teacher, I was really intrigued by you talking about recruiting and retaining special education staff. They are hard to come by. So in a district that is having some issues being able to pay them what some of our neighboring districts pay and retain them, if I was to want a job here, I probably couldn't do that in this seat, but if I wanted to, how would you guys try and attract, what would you use, what would be the process to attract someone that's been doing this for a long time to come here and do this job here?
That's a $1 million question, Vice President Fortney, and we have definitely brainstormed and thought up some great ways of things that we're doing, including really connecting them to our school campuses and our school, getting them within the school culture. Sometimes it's hard if you're one resource teacher on an elementary campus or two resource teachers because you don't feel connected to the third grade team, say, the way a third grade teacher might. Another way that we've done is just increasing our advertising and making sure that our job listings are in other places on the Arizona Department of Ed, in other posting areas as well.
And I'll interrupt real quickly before Mrs. Hill speaks, but we're trying to, from the district level, be very creative with Mr. Karpinski right now, also with Mrs. Lynch to look at are there any financial parameters or incentives or things like that on the financial end that we could possibly do within the constraints? So we're trying to really think out of the box to attract the best and the brightest and then have such a welcoming culture and have them feel so connected that they'll stay with us. Mrs. Hill?
I think the biggest thing that all of us are doing on our campuses, specifically with special education, is building that relationship with them, being very visible in their classrooms, whether or not it's a resource classroom or it's a specialized program like PALS or REAL. And I know this year on my campus, I've heard many teachers say, it just helps to be connected. It just helps that somebody knows what I'm doing over here and that I'm a part of this team too. We've also really been looking hard for opportunities because they are experts in their field to share. If you're struggling with a student on our student study team, they're involved in that so that they can offer accommodations and they can really begin to be seen as a part of the team that they are at our schools.
Anybody else?
First, I'd like to say that what speaks to me out of all of this is it's a work smarter, not harder. And so kudos to all of the work that went into this because I know teaching is not an easy job. One of my questions is, I understand the horizontal alignment, but how is this alignment vertically working? Because in the past, one of our big problems has been math, as it's gone from sixth grade to seventh grade or eighth grade to high school. Mm-hmm. There's always seems to be somewhat of a deficiency. And I don't want to use that word. That's not the proper word. There seems to be a little bit of a lag with math scores. So how are how is this program working for vertical alignment?
President Hatcher, members of the board, Member Busby, that's actually a great question, and that's one of the things that Jill kind of alluded to. That's something we've met with Sarah and Jill and myself, that in the spring we really want to bring in all of our algebra teachers to speak with our 7th and 8th grade teachers to directly align which skills that our students need to ensure that they are successful. So really that fourth quarter for our 8th graders is really focusing on building on those specific skills to be ready and to be successful within Algebra 1. And then also on the back end with Ms. Sereno and with all of the elementary teachers working with 7th grade into 6th grade and looking at some of even within some of our programming for some of our enrichment for our students who might need some honors pieces and all of that, and how do we push that down into the 6th grade piece. So those are all of those K-12 pieces, and that's where I have the honor of working with Dr. Jensen and myself and all of the principals so that we can really look at that K-12 vertical alignment, but really pushing in what do our 8th graders need to be successful, because as we know, Algebra 1 is one of the hardest courses, and that's where you see exactly what you're talking about at the high school. They have to be successful for that. So what are those foundational skills that they need? And that's that conversation that has to happen with our Algebra 1 teachers and our 8th grade teachers, and then again, that vice versa, 7th grade with our 6th grade teachers. And that's going to be coming up in the spring when we bring everyone in together on those ends.
Thank you. I just have a couple more questions. Several of the slides reference purchasing materials, whether it's high-quality instructional materials or some kind of technology. How are we going to pay for this? Or what's the plan to pay for it?
Yes, great question, Member Busby. If you'll recall back when we've discussed the ESSER funding, some of that can be used for purchasing high-quality materials. And so that's where some of that money has already been earmarked. And that's where we collected input from people. And that was one of the things that consistently came back in surveys and from our public and everyone. And so that's where most of that will come from. We do have, in certain places, like some of our title funding, we're allowed to purchase certain parts of the materials, but we just have to make sure we do those within the rules of those different grants and such as well.
Thank you. My last question is, now I want to preface this with, I think this is awesome, what you guys have been working on, and I think there's going to be great outcomes from it. But knowing where the district has been and the effort that has been made to do this alignment both vertically and horizontally, and at one point we were calling ourselves a K-12 school, but it all kind of fell apart. So what kind of reassurances do you have that, okay, there's a lot of steam because this is a new thing and everybody's excited, but as we go on and everybody gets really comfortable, how can you guarantee it's not going to fall apart and we're going to go back to our old ways of doing things?
Another great question, Member Busby. So systems, that's the main thing that I can say, is that we can't just tell teachers, hey, go do all these great things and not give them time to do them. And so for now, it's been the half days, which I'll speak frankly, it's been very difficult because sometimes it's 5 weeks before you get your next half day. Right now, we don't get to see them again until January because of the way that the schedule falls. And so that makes it very difficult, and we've had to get creative with some other ways of meeting and trying to really take advantage of the time that we do have. But developing systems and making sure that our systems align with all of our arrows, and then that way we can make these great things happen. But if we just tell people and command it, you're right. It will all fall apart as soon as one of us disappears or whatever may happen.
Thank you.
And sorry, I'm going to add one more thing. And again, it goes back to having that dedicated time for that professional learning. And that is our goal. And that's specifically with the calendar committee and with the calendar survey that's come out. We want to have that dedicated time for professional learning K-12 for all of our teachers to have that already built in on a weekly basis.
Member Walker, we don't want to forget about you. Do you have a question?
No, I am good. Thanks for the presentation.
Okay. Anyone else?
Yeah, just a quick question. Obviously, we're in the process of developing this and moving ahead. We're going to, quickly be to the end of the semester and roll into January. Before we know it, the state assessments will be here. Are we going to be, obviously we're moving in the right direction, but I don't know what to expect with this spring's state assessments. I mean, it's like I said, this is a fantastic amount of work that's already been done, and I know moving forward it's going to be beneficial to the students, which is the bottom line. But I don't want those first state assessment grades to roll back in and everybody goes, oh, nuts, we didn't do it. It's like, well, we're still kind of getting there. So I'm hoping, and also realizing the states changed their test. This is what the third test in 4 years. So, I mean, there's still a lot of newness on that test when that comes out too. So, I mean, there'll be a little getting to know the new test time frame that we got to work within too. So,
absolutely, Member Brown. Great question. So, what I kind of hear you saying is this going to show that we're going to improve on tests, even though we don't have a baseline data really? So you can expect greatness always. That we do nothing else among this group. And so because it is a new test, we don't know what the format will look like exactly. The standards will remain the same. However, if you sat in I have the pleasure of working with the third grade teachers. If you sat in one of our third grade teacher meetings, a good portion of their time that we spend talking is, but my kids knew that, they just didn't know the way the test asked that question. And so that's what we're working on, because then we're saying, well, then they didn't really know it. It wasn't transferable. They need to know it and have it be asked a lot of different ways. And so that's one of the things we've been working on is how can we ask questions in more rigorous ways? How can we reframe it? And how can we teach kids? We don't want to spend a lot of time teaching kids how to take a test, but how can we teach them to be prepared to answer a question when it's given in a variety of different formats? Does anyone have anything to add?
Well, and I would also like to add, although we don't know exactly what the test will look like, we never know exactly, we do get a blueprint from the state that gives us a little bit of an idea of the different types of questions. And we do give a quarterly benchmark assessment that is developed by a wonderful member of our team who's not up here at the moment, that we do look at, and we use released items from the state to build that so that we're using as close of a model as we can to help the teachers respond and the students become more familiar with the types of questions that might be asked. So we're giving them multiple different ways to interact with our best guess at what type of material they might see on that test so that we can respond with instruction and make sure that we're giving our students what they need as far as the rigor.
Right. Definitely, the art of taking the test is almost as important as the subject matter of the test. And that is, like we've seen, the state changing the test really has gotten everybody, like you said, you just don't know what to expect, and then we'll see it. So, and I do, you mentioned the benchmarks too. So I'm also sure that we're using our internal benchmarks too, to help measure our student achievement as we're getting up to that test time.
And especially at the high school level, with having them become prepared with taking a time test, because this is the first year with ACT Aspire and with the ACT, that is going to be the state assessment. It's an actual timed exam.
Yeah. Thank you.
Anybody else? Thank you very much. This was really a good presentation for us. All righty, item 3, public comments. We have about 19 of them, so we'll need to have an admonition read, and each person will have 2 minutes to speak. All right, call to the public. According to ARS 38-431.01H, governing board members may not discuss or take legal action on matters raised during an open call to the public. The only allowable responses a governing board member may make are: number 1, board member may respond if there is direct criticism of the board member. Number 2, board member may direct staff to look into a matter. Or number 3, board member can ask to have this item placed on a future agenda. Speakers need to be mindful of what they say when presenting to the board. Inappropriate comments could be considered slanderous. All righty. Our first speaker is Sunny McLernan. Sunny McLernan. And you have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Sunny McLernan. I'm a parent of an elementary school student at the district. And first, I have 2 items to speak on. And first, I wanted to just thank the board for bringing the idea or the discussion for considering ending membership with the Arizona Schools Board Association. The recent actions of the NSBA has done a lot to get parents' attention, and not in a good way. I believe the NSNBA has shown itself to be very divisive and not really an organization that parents have a lot of confidence in. I appreciate the governing board's public consideration of ending membership with the ASBA, and while I don't know the negatives or the downsides of ending membership, I wanted to say that the parents do appreciate you at least bringing this topic up. Next, I also wanted to say I'm in support of a performance audit. I realize these are expensive projects, but at this point, if the board is committed to pursuing an audit and its conclusions and following up on its recommendations, a performance audit could provide a strategic way forward for the district. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, Tara, don't know how to say this, so pardon me, Rajoy.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Tara Rajoy, and I have a son in 8th grade at Sonoran Trails Middle School and a daughter that graduated Cactus Shadows 2 years ago. When I saw that a future agenda item to be discussed was regarding the district possibly cutting ties with the Arizona School Board Association, because they are a member of the National School Board Association Federation, I have come out and I want to show my support of this. As a concerned parent on where the future of this district may go, this is a very important decision. When I saw that Chandler District cut ties and left the NSBA, I hope that many other districts, including ours, will follow. The National School Board Association has shown time and time again that they continue to serve their own interests and political agendas. Parents have a right to work with the school boards and have a say in our children's education. At the last meeting, I sat here and I heard concerns as to why so many people are leaving this district and going to other schools. Maybe this is a good chance to make a bold statement and say, you know what, we are listening to parents. And we are going to do what's in the best interest of our children and join many other states and districts right now who are actually listening and ending their ties with this organization. I think this will attract more families and align with their values. So please support the majority of parents who get involved in hopes to give their children a good education with morals and values, and let's take politics out of it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker, Elizabeth Mantel. Elizabeth Mantel.
Board members, President Hatcher, Dr. Monroe, I agree that Ccusd should end its membership with the Arizona School Boards Association, which is also a member of NSBA. Both these associations are not doing what's in the best interest of our children. On the ASB website, under their equity lens and equity policy frameworks, they have guidelines and examples that talk about levels of oppression, conscious and unconscious bias, and how students should know the impact of their own racial identity on themselves and others. These are just a few examples of what they want in all classrooms. You see, CRT is always under the guise of different vocabulary, such as equity, diversity, and inclusion, and we have to be careful of what we are allowing in our district. Stuff like this can muddy the waters real quick, encouraging discrimination and segregation. I am against anything that will forge a wedge between parents and teachers, students and teachers, and between students and other students. The focus in classrooms should continue to be on academics and the character traits that are taught now at school that teach kids to respect others and for them to be accountable for their own actions. I ask that you would please end our membership with these associations and invest in our children to help them grow and flourish. Thank you.
Next speaker, Peter Nassos. Sorry. And it looks like he's speaking for Rachel, maybe? Okay. So 4 minutes, Ms. Rodriguez.
Ccusd board, I'm actually here to ask for transparency, but I'm also here for resolve. And I'm bringing this up to you as you're here to serve us, the community, and our children, but it doesn't necessarily feel like that so much. Let me explain. A few weeks ago, we were here with a room full of parents about a mask debate. 98% of the people here told you that they were against the masks in the schools and brought the facts to support it. Yet, for some reason, after hearing an overwhelming amount of people speak and voice their opposition, 2 of you still voted for it. Thus, that told the community that our voice doesn't matter and that you have a narrative or maybe an agenda. And no matter what we say, you're going to do as you choose. A few weeks ago, a concerned parent asked for a response noting 10 items that he and many of us were expecting that our children should be taught in schools. He was asking you basically stick to the curriculum. This is what I've passed out to you all. Yet today, there's no answers. We wonder why. Our community would like to know that today's progressive radical activism, pushing CRT, denouncing our flag, attempting to understand one's identity, pushing pronouns, altered or exploited teaching of sex ed, asking personal questions of our children that do not belong in Google or anywhere except in our own homes, and many other things. These things will stay out of our schools. If I may be totally honest, this community doesn't totally trust you. Not with a budget, not with curriculum, and not to make decisions about the well-being of our children. Your bond didn't pass. Although there are probably many variables as to why, have you ever thought of the lack of transparency and canned responses to deep issues about our children might be the reason why? You were all voted in with trust to make decisions based on the best interest of our children and our community, not what today's atmosphere is attempting to push for politics and divisiveness for power. But as I tell my kids, maybe we need a restart, Ccusd board, a restart to be transparent with our community for the well-being of our most valuable possessions. We can agree to disagree on many things, and you will always have opposition and can't make everyone happy. But you will be surprised at what can be accomplished when you're honest and transparent with us. In fact, rather than having board meetings with concerned parents pointing their fingers at you, you might just find the wind at your back with the support you never even knew existed. Thank you.
Next speaker, Chris Hazeltine.
Good evening, President Natcher and governing board members. My name is Chris Hazeltine, and I am a professional educator and have been for 26 years, 25 of them here. And while it might not come as any surprise to Shelley Niffen, before I became a teacher, I've had many other careers. One of them being a legal library clerk for a major law firm downtown Phoenix. Now, I bring that up because while I was immersed in law, my job was to support the legal professionals. And it would have been egregiously irresponsible of me to advise an attorney on how to practice law. As I see things, your role is pretty much the same, and that is to support the professional educators here in Ccusd and to oversee what is going on. But my feeling of the future agenda items is that it now creates a sense of overreach. That is not your role. Your role is to support and to oversee the professionals who are doing their job, many of which you have hired with the understanding that this professional knows their job. So what I'm asking is that do not lose sight of what your role is. Trust the professionals you have hired. We know our job, both in the classroom as well as administratively, both in schools and in the district office. Anything more than that, such as the future agenda items, does become a little bit more overreaching, and again, is not your role. So Trust whom you have hired. We know our jobs. I've been doing this for 26 years, and many others have done it for quite a long time as well. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker, how do you say your last name? Anat Schultz? Anat?
Good evening. My name's Anat, and I'm the parent of a junior at Cactus Shadows High School. I want to start off and say thank you to the board. These are trying times, so thank you for continuing to represent everyone in our school district. You have been met with conflicting issues, often spoken about in a disrespectful manner. So thank you for your patience and commitment. Finally, we all have our opinion on what's best for our school district, and we, the community, can stand up here like I am today and express them freely while you navigate what's truthful and what's not. So thank you for hearing all sides and considering their different points. What should matter here is what's factual, what's productive, and what is respectful. I appreciate the district's transparency with funding and spending. Unless the board can present to us some evidence that the district is not being compliant with financial records, I don't see the need to pass agenda item 8.3. I'm grateful that the board is able to receive guidance and resources from the Arizona School Board Association, especially during these conflicting times. Agenda item 8.2 is being suggested because the ASBA's policies may conflict with part of our community's politics. Not the entire community, only part of it. Please keep this in mind as you discuss this agenda item. What's awesome about having a school board is that decisions are made locally. The NSBA and ASBA, as you know, is for guidance and recommendations. Discontinuing membership from an advocate like the ASBA can be detrimental for our district. Finally, as we recall, Chandler Unified School District recently experienced hate speech during open comments at one of their board meetings. The school board received negative feedback from the surrounding communities for their immediate lack of response to anti-Semitic comments at that meeting. Thankfully, the Chandler School Board has been working with the surrounding community, and now the board chair reads an expanded version. I'm asking you to do the same at future meetings.
Next speaker, Trish Duran.
President Hatcher, board members, I'll be brief. I can't speak as eloquently as some of the people that have gone before me, but I wanted to thank you for your service and also recognize the fact that having an impartial oversight committee is important in our district. We have fantastic administrators and principals, as evidenced by their presentation today, that are working very hard to create a future for our district with guidance. And I would like to also ask, as a teacher in one of our schools, to continue that support. And that's really all I'm looking for, is to let you know we work hard. We try and do everything we know we can with things that we have and things that we don't have. We just continue to ask for your support in a non-political manner that supports students and teachers and the district. Thank you.
Thank you, Bobby Clendenin. Sorry, Clendenin.
It's hard to pronounce. I'm Bobby Clendenin. I have two kids in the district since preschool, now in 8th and a junior at Cactus Shadows. I'm here to show my support for all the board members who have listened to our community's comments and concerns. Thank you for your continued efforts, even though you are facing adversity and sometimes threats. Passions run high among parents advocating for their children, and opinions vary greatly. It is important, however, for all community members to remain respectful to the board members, district educators, and other parents, even when our viewpoints are different. Interrupting, laughing, intimidating, and even threatening our educators, board members, and other community members is concerning, although it's been great tonight. How can we hold community members accountable for their threats and protect the people serving our school district and students? I oppose the agenda item 8.2 as it suggests our school board should withdraw from the Arizona School Board Association because they are a part of the National School Board Association. These associations are support networks for local boards. Their role should not be twisted into a political agenda when membership is at a benefit to the entire community. The NSBA has asked for support from the Department of Justice to investigate the threats against board members and educators made by parents nationwide. This is exactly how those community members making threats can be held accountable. If you are not making threats, you have no reason for concern and should support membership with the ASBA and NSBA. In addition, it's important to remain focused on what is factual. Whether it's how to proceed with COVID mitigation efforts, concerns about the district's transparency with funding and spending, or what is or what is not currently being taught in school. The truth matters, and conspiracy theory feeds misinformation. For this reason, I oppose Agenda Item 8.3 as no evidence has been presented to bring it up a special concern within our school district. Lastly, I'm sorry the bond didn't pass and there was some other stuff. Thank you.
Next speaker, James Rich.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Monroe. My name is James Rich, former governing board member and Ccusd parent for the past 9 years. I want to express my support and gratitude for the possible future agenda item related to leaving the ASBA. As you know, the ASBA has always taken a large amount of money for a small amount of services and used that money to lobby state and federal government for its own political agenda. Each of you receives numerous weekly emails and offerings of webinars and advocacy training, as well as the monthly magazine, all of which push that same agenda, always. Leaving the ASBA has always been the right thing to do. The timing now, of course, is better than ever. The NSBA, and by extension the ASBA, have made it clear in writing that they want criticism to be criminalized, and more importantly, parental rights to be denied. Their request to the United States Attorney General is unprecedented in American history. In my opinion, a school district cannot morally justify any further support of such an organization. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker, Jill Mclin.
Good evening, Dr. Monroe, President Hatcher, and governing board members. My name is Jill Mclin. I'm a parent in this district, but I've also been a teacher in this district for the last 15 years. Believe me when I tell you, I have poured my heart into this district. But tonight I am here to talk about the stress that teachers have, especially this year. I saw that the governing board is asking about an exit survey and are wondering why teachers are leaving. To teachers, this is a no-brainer. First, it's really hard work to work in a district where the community doesn't support us. It is discouraging that once again our bond didn't pass. But what's more is that all 5 of our board members didn't vote yes on the bond. To teachers, it seems like the governing board should be all in for our district, but unfortunately that's not the case. Second, it's hard to continue to teach when parents in the community are constantly blaming us for things that are not happening in our classrooms. Teachers are not teaching CRT. They haven't been teaching CRT. Please stop blaming us on things that aren't happening. I know that there are many other teachers that would like to get up here and speak tonight, but are simply afraid to do so. They don't want to be targeted, threatened, or retaliated against, as that has already happened to numerous teachers in our district over the last year by parents. The feelings as an educator in this district are that parents always assume the negative. Teachers are scrutinized for the things that they are not doing. We need the support from this board. How can teachers continue to come to school with a smile on their face when they are being accused of things that are not happening? Lastly, Arizona has consistently ranked amongst the lowest states for teacher pay. In addition to that, Cave Creek is one of the lowest paid districts in Maricopa County. It is no wonder that with all the added stress, CCUSD teachers are leaving our district and can drive 10 minutes down the road and be paid thousands more for the same job. Unfortunately, until these issues are resolved, it seems inevitable that we will continue to lose our wonderful teachers in CCUSD. I hope that you as the board continue to support our teachers in Cave Creek Unified.
Next speaker, Cindy Cummins. Cindy Cummins.
My name is Cindy Cummins, and I have 5 grandkids in the district and live in the district. I want to thank the board members and Superintendent Dr. Monroe for allowing me to weigh in on the future agenda of item 8.2. I had to research the Arizona School Boards Association and the National School Boards Association before I felt confident addressing the board on this issue. And here's what the important takeaways for me were. ASBA is funded exclusively by the dues paid to the districts annually. There are no monies coming in from lobbyists, corporate sponsors, or private individuals. This was an important distinction for me to make sure that there wasn't a lot of adverse monies being funneled into decisions that were being made. I downloaded the 2022 political agenda from the ASBA, and it was adopted by the delegates on September 11th this year. The Arizona Board of Education the Arizona School Boards Association represents and advocates for the diverse interests of the state school district governing boards and approximately 1 million Arizona children whose education is entrusted to their care. ASBA legislative, regulatory, and legal advocacy is based on the association's political agenda. A member-developed document, the political agenda, is discussed, debated, and approved by the ASBA membership at the annual delegate assembly. Every district member board has the opportunity to influence it yearly. The 4 agenda items for next year are adequately and equitably fund district schools to at least the national median per pupil funding.
Thank you. Next speaker, Kathleen Thorius.
Good evening. Sunlight is said to be the best disinfectant. I wish to shine sunlight on practices that need to be disinfected and to express appreciation and hope for practices that allow sunlight and warmth to prevail in our district such that we truly are and remain one team. I'm here to oppose the non-recognition of some of our community members, evidenced by the push to cancel any curriculum or affiliation with national and state educational leadership organizations that dare to validate the personhood of all of our students, families, and educators, not only the personhood of the majority. I oppose a future agenda item seeking disassociation with the National and Arizona School Board Association, an organization that, in addition to supporting curriculum that affirms all our students, is seeking to protect board members from intimidation, harassment, threats, death threats, physical attacks impacting our public servants around the country and that are certainly not covered by the First Amendment. I'm here to support continued exercise of First Amendment rights by parents and families at board meetings. I support listening with humility and seeking to understand perspectives that differ from our own and contribute to representative governance in CCUSD. I oppose the expression of perspectives through intimidation, accusation, and mockery, such as what I witnessed at the last school board meeting where speakers vociferously waved a picture of a board member and raised false contradiction between being unmasked outside at a district event and seeking to discuss as a board the issue of masking children upon the recommendation of every single public health agency in the United States. I oppose the accusation of child abuse that was thrown at parents who mask their medically vulnerable children like myself. I oppose an audience member's jeering claim to be and these are her words, domestic terrorist in response to a speaker's misleading claim about the attentions of the NSBA in a room full of community members without reproach. Finally, I'm here to support our board members who exercise their rights and responsibilities.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker, Randolph Bartholomew.
Thank you, board members. Thank you, teachers. I used to teach Navy deep sea diving. It was hard to teach grown-ups. I can't imagine kids. Thank you, parents. Yeah, I'd like to talk to you about 8.82. I'm here because I was watching the news and the NSBA said anybody shows up at a school board meeting and disagrees with them vehemently, they're domestic terrorists. I've been to Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, before it was a terrorist camp. And if I'm going to be sent there and locked up as domestic terrorist, because I spoke my mind at a school board meeting, there's nothing left of our country. So I'll go there. I don't think it'll happen, but it certainly could. Now, the NSBA is backpedaling and said, oh, we got to wear skis. Well, Mayor Garland and the president haven't addressed that. You know, after 20 years in the Navy, I was a firefighter EMT. When people, they're out of their mind on drugs, injured me, sick their dogs on me, I didn't write a letter to the president. I didn't get on my engine radio and get up to dispatch and say, hey, get a hold of the president and Mayor Garland and the FBI because I need some help here. No, I said, give me county, give me Washington State Patrol, or give me city law. It should be local issue. And NSBA stepped in it. I don't care if they're reignited. They sailed that nuke in the air. You need to get away from them as well as the local ASBA. That would go a long ways to reestablishing trust with the parents that show up here.
Absolutely. Thank you. Next speaker, Eric DeVore.
President Hatcher, Governing Board members, and Dr. Monroe. My name is Eric DeVore. This is my 10th year at Cave Creek Unified School District, and I was the Cave Creek Teacher of the Year in 2019. I have recently read about an exit survey as to questioning why teachers are leaving the district, and I would like to inform you of my duties and responsibilities this year to shed some light on that question. Currently, I am a 6/5 teacher, which means I have zero prep. I teach 5 different things just before lunch. I am also the English language coordinator as my second job just to make ends meet, and I'm also the department lead of world languages and one of the 8th grade field trip advisors, which I don't get compensated for, but I do just to make ends meet in this district. I recently read that the average 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom apartment in the Phoenix Metro is around $1,400 for an 800 square foot. I have to say that even though I work 2 jobs in the district and 1 outside of the district, I still have issues making ends meet. Today is the 15th of the month, and my rent is due today. And I can't tell you how much anxiety it gives me to pay my rent, especially during a week that we don't get paid in the district. Because I don't know how I'm going to be able to afford other things, such as the holidays, such as the gas at Tatum and Dynamite that costs $4.05 now a gallon. I am trying to figure out how to make ends meet on top of the holiday season. In years past, I held had a club stipend at the end of the year for my holiday gifts for my family, and I just don't have the time to do that this semester. To answer your question, teachers are leaving because they can't afford to do this job. There are teachers that don't even have a comma in their paycheck that need to survive, and many of them have student loan debt just to be in this profession. When you become a teacher, you don't do it for the money, but it can't even pay our basic needs. I've stayed in this position because I love and enjoy the people that I work with and work for. But when you work in a district that doesn't support your profession or even sometimes who you are as a person, it's hard to want to work for it. It's hard to want to work when our district isn't even competitive with neighboring districts when it comes to making a living. This year is one of the hardest years for any teacher because we got to get our kids back on track. After a pandemic, we're being asked to ease up on our students and help support emotional needs, but yet we are being held to higher standards of rigor to show growth on test scores.
Thank you. Next speaker, Shelley Niffen.
Good evening. My name is Shelly Niffen. I've been teaching in Ccusd for 9 years. I have 2 kids at Horseshoe Trails as well. This is my 11th year in education and is by far the most difficult, stressful job I've ever had, including my first year teaching and a decade of restaurant management. We teachers are overwhelmed, exhausted, and barely hanging on by a rapidly fraying thread, if we're hanging on at all. Some have already left, and we can hardly blame them. This year has been for me a year of constant failure. As a teacher, I simply cannot meet the ever-growing laundry list of expectations, and I want to, so badly. It's not a lack of desire that's keeping me from doing everything that is asked of me. It's reality. Between teaching, meetings, covering classes for other teachers, helping colleagues with tech needs, returning emails, filling out evaluation forms, calling parents, conferencing with students, and a million other things, I have no time to grade or plan during my contract hours. So I work at home. I've worked every night and every weekend this school year, never seeing a light at the end of this seemingly abysmal tunnel. And anytime I think I'm getting close, it's because I've utterly neglected my husband and my children. I should not have to choose between teaching, a job that I love, and my family. I love teaching, and until this year, I've never seriously considered doing anything else. Unfortunately, what we're doing to teachers right now is unsustainable. That's all. Thank you.
The next speaker, Alison Mayson. Alison Mayson.
I am a parent at Lone Mountain. I have a 5th grader, a 3rd grader, and a preschooler. And I just want to thank you all for trying for the bond. It's frustrating that we can't make our kids a priority, but I would be even more discouraged to see us waste money and resources on unnecessary audits when the district is audited multiple times a year already. We need to focus on moving forward and getting back to real conversations about teaching and learning, and let the administration do their jobs. A third-party audit would be a waste of time and resources simply to mollify a vocal minority. Thank you.
The next speaker, Cedric. I hate to even try to pronounce. Would you pronounce your name for us, please?
Cedric Gadusod.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm the father of 4 kids that are all throughout the school district, and the last meeting I was asked to come and talk to you guys about my experience having my little daughter Sylvie wearing a mask for a medical reason. At the time, I didn't feel comfortable coming and sharing with everybody why it is that she's wearing a mask. Little do I know that a couple days after I heard the mockery and the insult that was going on, and this is the reason why there's not a whole lot of parents that want to come to these meetings. It's because they're scared. I'm really, really pleased to see the police over there and everybody being really, really nice. I didn't hear anybody complaining or being rude. I will just ask that being masked or anything else like that we just remember that we need to support the teacher, the school district, and everything else is just a distraction. Thank you.
And the last speaker, Andrew Cuppo.
President Hatcher and governing board members, my name is Andrew Cuppo. I'm a graduate and current teacher here at Cactus Shadows. I actually did the math. Of the 33 years that I've been alive, I've spent 26 of them in a Cave Creek Unified School District classroom. So I have a unique perspective both as a student and as a teacher, and I can tell you that when I see things like future agenda item 8.2 or 8.3, it gives me a lot of worry. I think something that everybody looks for in life is stability, direction forward, knowing that things are going to work out because everybody's moving together. And when you look at 8.2 and 8.3 and other future agenda items, you question that. I question that. I question my future here at Cave Creek Unified School District. I question my future as a Falcon. Having a bond not passed during such a fiscally necessary time is indicative of things that are becoming more and more normal, having to do more with less. And it's tiring. Teachers are tired. Students are tired. I love my students, and every day they come in my classroom, I have to pick them up off the ground because they are so exhausted. And that takes a toll. And to see that and to think to yourself, wow, I do this every day, and that's the thanks we get, that's frustrating. And I know you understand that because you pushed for it. You asked for it. You asked the community, and I appreciate that. I appreciate that very much. And I hope that as you look forward, you can look to your hearts and think to yourselves, is this the best thing for teachers? Is this the best thing for students? Is this the best thing for our community? And I hope you vote no on a majority of those action items. And I thank you for your time and your patience and all the hard work you do for our community. It goes unthanked too much. So thank you.
before we move to item 4, I just want to thank the crowd too, no matter what your opinions are. Thank you for being civil to one another. Item 4, presentations, information, reports. 4.1, discussion regarding current standing district policies regarding governing board members and the restrictions that are in place to reply back to our shareholders as a governing board member. Submitted by Board Member Brown, presented by Jennifer N. Mclin, Esquire, Gus Rosenfeld, PLC.
Before we get started, may I ask a question, Dr. Monroe? Regarding this agenda item, as this is a policy discussion, and currently Cave Creek Unified is still a member of the Arizona School Board Association, why didn't we have a representative from the ASBA Policy Services Department to attend and help guide the board to understand the many CCUSD policies regarding this agenda item? I find it odd that a moment that we would have liked to had some support from ASBA, but we don't have anybody here from them, from their policy department, to help us.
Yeah, I can answer that. Member Brown, when we did ASBA training in January with Chris Thomas is no longer with the organization, and Jennifer McLennan from Gus Rosenfeld has had a long relationship as legal counsel in working to help us understand our ASBA policies. So she is here simply to review those policies that the board has adopted in the past and that have been requested. So that is the primary reason. We have a lot of faith in our legal counsel under our prepaid trust. There's a lot of different lawyers that we use. And as a new superintendent, I know President Hatcher is a new board president. We appreciated that Jennifer McLennan accepted the assignment to come in to help us to understand these policies a little better that are from ASBA.
Okay.
I guess I'm disappointed. As a member of ASBA, I would have thought somebody.
Point of order. We need to stay on the topic of 4.1. So go ahead with your PowerPoint, please.
Are these items, the items that we're going to discuss in 4.1, are they pure policy items that have come down from legislature through ASBA to the Cave Creek Governing Board?
Madam President?
Yes, they are. That's correct.
Why don't you proceed with your PowerPoint?
Sure. This is Jennifer McLennan, Gus Rosenfeld. I'm here to speak to Mr. Brown's request that this matter be placed on a future agenda, and specifically the concern that was raised by his email on October 3rd was that there might be communication back from governing board members to constituents that might be outside of the open meeting law. And Board Member Brown raised a number of different policies and wanted to know how they aligned to those policies. So I don't have a real presentation to make. I just am here to answer the questions of the governing board and specifically of Governing Board Member Brown, who asked that this item be placed on the agenda.
Are there comments or questions?
Well, I guess I would ask right away, to the best of your knowledge, are any board members, are they replying properly to the constituents when we get emails?
So thank you, Madam President, Mr. Fortney. The board member, I don't view your emails on a daily basis. I'm sent them from occasion if you need to get legal advice on them. If you receive a email from a constituent as a board member individually, you're entitled to reply back to that email, and that would not be a violation of the open meeting law. If you reply to all board members as a whole, that would be of concern. So the general rule of thumb is if you receive an email in which you are named as well as your other 4 board members, you should not reply all. Replying all just to thank them for the email or to acknowledge receipt of the communication wouldn't be substantively communicating about the body of the communication. In general, the open meeting law does not prohibit you from responding to a constituent, but you should not involve your other board members in that communication piece.
But we are not supposed to solve the problems. As I understand board policy, we're supposed to refer them to the superintendent. if it comes via email. If it comes in person or whatever, well, okay, never mind. I'll stick to the agenda item. My understanding is that it's referred to the superintendent.
That's correct.
Well, to follow up on that then, I've always wondered this because oftentimes we'll get an email that is to all of us and the superintendent. So it seems kind of silly to say, I'm going to refer this to the superintendent because he's copied on it. So I'm not sure how to respond to those. Do I just say no? No response seems like I'm just not paying attention. And yet to just say thank you, I don't know how much that seems better. So would you advise on how to respond to those and at least acknowledge that you're getting those emails?
Sure. And I think it's similar in nature to the admonition that President Hatcher read off at the beginning of the response to public comment. You all had a very vibrant public comment session in this board meeting that I've attended, but you can't respond or talk to your constituents. What you can say is, I will make sure to refer this matter to Dr. Monroe for further discussion. So I think that you can do the same thing if you receive an email and just respond back to them and say, I've asked Dr. Monroe to take a look at that issue.
Member Walker, are you still there? And do you have questions?
I am. No questions.
Okay.
I do have a question. Our policy, as Beth pointed out, if we get emails, we're supposed to refer them. But as Jeff pointed out, it's sort of redundant because generally the emails we receive, it's to at least 6 of us, the 5 board members and Dr. Monroe. And it says in our policy we're not supposed to, respond to anybody. But what you've told us that is, if I'm understanding correctly, if we get an email, then any one of us can reply singularly to whomever has sent the email. Do we need to revise our policy?
So your policy specifically states that board communication with the public that talks specifically about official communications policies, board's concern, and board action being imparted to the community by the superintendent, correct? If you are responding individually to a person to state that you've received their email, that the administration is looking into it, you're not talking about the substance of that content of that email. If you respond specifically to the constituent that I will fix this for you, I'm going to go to the school and I'll take care of that, whatever the problem that's being raised, then that would potentially be conflicting with your governing board policy BHD. So when I'm talking about responding to the constituent, I'm not talking about substantively communicating with that person about fixing the problem. You may have an answer to the problem and you may be a part of the solution, but the best way to do that would be to be a part of the solution with the administration.
So if I'm understanding what you're saying, we can acknowledge receipt of the email, but beyond that, we shouldn't say anything.
That's the safest course of action. And if you do have something of substance to add to the conversation that the constituent is raising, doing that through the administration is the safest way to make sure. Because, for instance, let's say you reply back to the constituent with the substantive content responding to the concern. Let's just say it's, the person's responding about their special ed student and you respond back with answers. Why don't you try this? Why don't you try that? What about a behavior plan? Whatever it is. If that person then replies all back to the entirety of the board because you're no longer in no longer in control of the content of your response. So if they reply at all, then there is a conversation between the board as a whole because you've seen the entirety. They will all have seen the entirety of that substantive discussion, which is why it puts you at risk.
This is one last thing I think I had. Is it okay, I've thought of this a few times, is it okay to ask the person, let me know if you get a response, let me know if you don't get a response?
Yes.
Is that acceptable to do?
Yes, I think that's fine. Okay. And it's okay to follow up. Is that Ms. Walker telling us our time's up?
Member Walker, are you there?
I am. I was disconnected.
Okay. Are you finished with your question? Okay. All right. Anybody else?
Well, on the slides that you've provided in the packet, while they're do list the policy and the head of the item of the policy, policy BBA has got 8 or 10 different bullet points, and you've just picked and choose one or two, to not even really one or two bullet points to put on your put on your slide. BBA bullet point number 8, it tells the board to refer complaints to the proper school authorities and to refrain from individual counsel and action. With the prior superintendent, we were told everything gets channeled up to the superintendent. Board members do not reply back to parents. We do not reply back to community members. Everything funnels up to the superintendent, who then parcels it out to the proper school authority, school site, principal, whomever it may be. So these policies, like this policy BBA, was adopted in November of 2009. So the only thing that's changed from 2 years ago to now is to change at the superintendent level. So now all of a sudden it's okay that we can reply back with these emails, goes counter to what we've been told years prior.
Madam President, Mr. Brown. So I'm personally not telling you anything different other than acknowledging the email. I'm supporting the notion that the substantive content of the email should be responded to by the superintendent and his team. So I don't know that there has been an overwhelming change in your policy. And as far as the slides and what's contained on the slides, I just took it from what you had highlighted in your October 3rd email, because I thought those were the portions of the policies that you had questions about.
Well, I would have thought the entire policy would have been something to discuss. I highlighted those bullet points specifically because that was the issue that had come up, that the statement was made that board members can reply back. And I'm like, they can't, because here's the policies and here's the specific bullet points in these policies stating that, we can't do that.
Well,
the issue was all of a sudden now if a parent gets 5 different replies, each from a board member, that we're doing it separately, all we're doing now is confusing the parent on whatever the issue may be, or a community member. And I thought the direction given to prior boards with everything funneling up through the superintendent was to eliminate that confusion or that chance of confusion.
And that may be a communication protocol that you as a board may want to discuss at a future meeting to funnel communication only through one member. Perhaps you just have the board president acknowledge on behalf of the board, we've received your email, so that there isn't that confusion. But from an open meeting law perspective, it's not an illegal use of or an illegal communication unless you're discussing the content, and then that content is rebounded back to you as a board as a whole.
But see, that's the piece we can't control. So if I reply back to a parent, and that parent takes my reply and then reworks an email and sends that back to the group, and then another board member replies, now all of a sudden we've got a chain of email that's a violation of open meeting law, because 2 board members have now replied differently along the same email chain.
Right.
And that's the confusion piece, whereas everything going up through the superintendent eliminated that.
Correct. And that's why it's my advice that you just respond without content to the email. Just acknowledge it.
So if you just say, thank you for your email, I'll forward it, there's nothing to really be confused about if we all basically say the same thing, and we're at least acknowledging that we've got the letter. Is that pretty much what you're saying?
That's my best advice. Right.
Well, that's standing policy. That's really not, that's what we should have been doing all along. That's not a new item just because it's on the agenda tonight. That's something, like I said, these policies, 3 of these are more than 10 years old. So prior boards have been held to a different standard than this current board.
So that's a board thing then, isn't it? That's really not a you thing. It's board agreeing with the superintendent that is how we should handle it.
One of the President Hatcher, Member Brown, members of the board is I'd like to readdress the communication protocol here in December or January so that we're all on the same page, so we don't put ourselves into any type of open meeting potential conflict. I appreciate Jennifer's advice in reviewing these policies with us. I do appreciate how the board handles the emails that come through. A lot of you forward them to me, and so that way staff and we can respond through principals and make sure that our parents are heard. But I would like to bring that to the board and look at our communication protocol again to make sure that we're all on the same page with these things.
Sounds like a good idea. All right, anyone else? Okay. Thank you very much. Item 4.2, fiscal year 2021-2022 budget update, presented by Ms. Marcy Rodriguez.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. As part of our regular meetings, I will be offering budget updates every meeting. Some of them will have specific topics, but this one, we wanted to start off with just the bond election results. As Dr. Monroe covered it earlier, this is high participation for our district, excellent to see participation among our community. Unfortunately, the bond did not pass. But even in spite of that, we wanted to share our thank you to all of you board members that have supported the community and our kids, the community that supported us. Although we lost the election, we will make a commitment to make sure that we still keep things moving forward. And we have some strategies to do that we want to share with you tonight. We had a Ccusd Excellence Committee when back in October of 2020 that looked at our priorities and needs as a district. It was identified that these needs would best be met if we could pass a bond to fund some of the areas that the Excellence Committee identified along with administration here at the district, and we had a facilities contractor come out and do an assessment of our facilities. We also had some other agencies come out. We had the National, I'm losing the word, the Security Council come out, look at the safety on our campuses as well. As part of that process, there were several items that were identified, over $40 million worth of items that the district is in need of replacing, repairing. They also established a priority of those. So they had a high, a medium, a low. These areas that we've identified here, I want to share with you, these were high priorities for the Excellence Committee. You'll see buses that are aging on there that need to be replaced. We have carpet, we have Chromebooks, we have storage tanks that are very old that need to be replaced. Lighting at the football, softball, baseball stadiums, at the high school, student furniture at all of our schools, taught turf at all the elementary school playgrounds, and then our computer infrastructure. So we have worked with different vendors to get estimates on this. We've also looked at, are there other available funding to us? Are there grants out there? Are there existing funds that we can redirect to cover some of these items that are on the list? So we just wanted to bring this to the governing board's attention, that we are reviewing possibilities for these particular items of need. So this is our next step. So the district and the school administration will be looking at possible funding sources. We know that we have a very generous community. There may be grants out there that we can write for to take care of some of these things. We may have some cash balances, some other grants, funding sources that we can tap into to cover some of those items that we've identified as the highest areas of need. The school administration with district level administration will look at efficiencies. We'll look at where we can reduce. And like I said, redirect maybe some of the funds that we currently have. There may be some programs we can eliminate. There may be some things that we need to reduce in some areas. But we will do an assessment and evaluation of how the district is running and where we can find the monies to pay for these things. We are also going to create a committee. So we hear the community wanting that fiscal transparency, and we think that's super important. And one of my jobs as the CFO is to educate the community on how school finance works, what resources we have available to us. So one of the commitments and goals that we have, that Dr. Monroe and I have this year, is to have a committee, an oversight committee. We also have made a commitment to do monthly informational sessions to where we go out and we have the community come in. I will do a short presentation and then offer up time where they can actually get clarification on how the finances of the school district works. And then once we have identified some of these efficiency savings, some of these areas where we will be reducing and identify funding for those critical items that we've identified, we will be bringing that back to the board in the form of these updates every month. Does anybody have any questions before I move on to my next topic? So one of the areas that I want to just kind of share and educate with our community is that, you know, we run a school district budget. And a lot of times people will ask, well, why can't schools just run like a business? Why do they have to have all these different rules and they have funds here and funds there? Well, just to give you a little bit of an insight on school district funding, we have over 50 different funds that we manage. And every one of those funds has a different purpose and a different law that governs it. So lots of things to keep track of. And every year we have an audit, an independent auditors come in, and they look at how we're spending those funds. Are you following the rules? Are you spending them on the things that you're supposed to be spending those funds on? So we have two different types of major funds that these 50 fall under. One of them is called a budget control fund. And simply that means the district can spend the money as long as they have the budget capacity. Now, in businesses, we know you can't be spending money if you don't have the revenue or the money in the bank. But school districts, the law gives us the authority to spend up to a budget capacity, even if it doesn't have cash. And these budgets are established, there's state budgets that are established that we have to follow. There's federal formulas that we follow with grants. The other funds fall under this cash-controlled fund. And so on the other hand, that only allows expenditures if it has a positive cash balance. So all of our principals know they can't spend money in these cash funds if they don't have cash balances in their accounts. So
before you go past these two slides, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Okay. And I know I've asked this before, but I want to ask it publicly. On the budget-controlled funds, that is really counterintuitive to how we normally think of a budget. And so what I asked before, and I'll ask now, is that how can a fund have a budget capacity if it doesn't have a cash balance? Does that go back to the encumbrance, which is what I would call a set-aside, and I don't know if that's quite the right term, but funds reserved to pay for something not yet received or incurred, but will be in the future?
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. That's an excellent question, and that is a concept that is difficult to get your head around in the school finance world. And yes, that encumbrance piece is, I've got a purchase order saying I'm going to buy that, I've got the budget to buy it. Now, we don't have to have cash in those budget-controlled accounts. We as a district, most of the time, do have cash in those accounts, but you don't have to. And the law says you can take out a warrant or a loan from the county because you have a budget. But yes, a lot of times in your reports that you're going to see, you'll see the encumbrance line, and encumbrance means set aside, reserved. You can't spend it. You've already used that budget, but you don't have to pay for it yet until you actually get the services or the goods. Does that help explain that for you? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So every month, the governing board receives financial reports in your packet. So that will fall under the, I believe it's 5.3. And 5.3, those monthly reports, I just want to kind of give you an idea of two of them that you're looking at. So those reports have a lot of numbers and a lot of columns in them. But fund balance report is what you're looking for, those cash controlled. So when you look at a cash controlled account, is there cash in that fund? So that's how you read that report. In the expenditure budget balance report, on the other hand, is the budget controlled accounts. So I'm going to share with you a list of what's a fund controlled account and what's a budget controlled account. So here's all these funds. These are all the budget controlled funds that we monitor. Monitor to make sure that they have budget capacity before we spend any of that money. And when you're looking at this, to your point, Madam President, you've got all this encumbered happening. So you can see what we've spent to date, you can see what we've encumbered, and a lot of that maintenance and operation, that's our big fund. So when we talk budget capacity, and you hear 32 million, 33 million, that's the fund we're talking about. And so that's formula that's generated by all the kids that sit in the classroom. That's how we fund that big. That's how we fund most of our teachers. That's how we fund to keep the electricity on. That's our biggest expense account. Then you'll see all the other ones underneath them. You've got grants. Grants are very specific as far as what they can be used for. You've heard us talking about those ESSER funds, the Fund 346. You'll see that there's a lot of money out there in that ESSER fund. That's how we're going to fund these wonderful programs that our principals all talked about this evening, and buying the materials that we need to make that happen for our kids. And so on down the line, and then you've got the bottom one, which is unrestricted capital, which is our district additional assistance. This is how we pay for our capital items. So list of funds, I could be here all day telling you how each one of them are used, but just want to give you an idea of the budget control funds that we monitor. The next ones are the cash control funds. Now these are the funds that we either do something like maybe tax credits where we solicit the community to donate to our schools, and you will see when you look at that tax credit line, which is 526, there's $1 million out there. Now I bet a lot of you sitting in this room are really excited about that because we could buy so much stuff with that $1 million. But again, it has rules along with it. It has parameters along with it. And I will tell you, when I run that $1 million and how it's allocated amongst all of our schools, guess which school has the majority of that money in the bank? Cactus Shadows. And do we understand why, right? That's athletics. That's how we pay for athletic programs. That's how we pay for our coaches, for our equipment, for our travel, for our conference fees. That's where the majority of that tax credit money goes. And then each of the elementaries, I will tell you the elementary schools are excellent about being very thoughtful about how they use their tax credit, using it in the way it's intended to be used, and honoring the donor's intention for that money. We also have a few others. One of our, the community schools, you'll see that there's money there. Community schools is how we run our preschool program and our enrichment programs. That funds all of our, our ECS staff and offers those wonderful programs. So we do have some cash balances here that I do believe we can redirect for some of those bond expenses that we have. What I want to be careful of, though, is when you get excited about those cash balances, is it sustainable? How do we manage that long term? So, for instance, if the Medicare reimbursement, which is the fund that we get for services that we deliver to our special ed kids, how do we want to invest that $900,000? And so what I look at is, well, how much money does that program bring in every year? If we were to spend that $900,000 and we had some things that we were trying to sustain with that money, and we only bring in $300,000 a year, that $900,000 won't be replenished every year. So we'll be very thoughtful about the recommendations that we bring to the board and look at how we can use some of those cash reserves in a very thoughtful, methodical way to accomplish some of these immediate needs that the district has. So that's a little bit of a budget update for the board. I will entertain any questions.
Anybody?
Just a couple. So we hear a lot of talk and a lot of questions and a lot of requests for transparency.
Yes, sir.
And it seems to me that, and you mentioned the CPA firm that does our audit, and we have all our stuff out on our websites. All our financial information is out on the website, correct?
That's correct.
And it's all reported to the Department of Education, correct? So there is transparency within the system. There's really nothing that we're trying to hide from anybody. I mean, it's all here, and the fact that you're going to go out and talk to people about this then would increase that transparency, would it not then?
Yes, Member Fortney, members of the board, thank you for the question. And that is our hope. That is our hope. One of the goals that we have set for ourselves is we want the community to be confident with the money that they entrust us to invest in the education of their students. This information, sometimes it can be confusing, and I want to help clarify that. And that will be one of our goals, is to make it understandable this year.
And it is basically, because the bond didn't pass, it is basically yours and administration's job to come up with the plans and then present them to the board on how we're going to go forward, right?
Mr. Fortney, yes, thank you for that question. Yes, that is the hopes, that we will be able collectively as an administrative team be able to identify where we can make some changes in our current programs to help move the district forward in a positive way.
Perfect, thank you.
One thing, we as governing board members have to listen to the community that has elected us to sit in these seats. And one of the major comments from the past election is, and it was mentioned today by several of the public comment speakers, about the audit. Now, you can say the word audit, and there's several different types of audit, but if our community members are requesting better financial responsibility on our part, then we as the board members, we have to appreciate that comment and then act accordingly to possibly have some sort of a audit, whatever kind of audit we wish to happen. It's not to say we're not appreciative of the work of the financial department, but it's to say we listened, we heard the community, now we've chosen a direction to act. So it's not that there's an assumption of guilt anywhere, but I think as a board member, we have to listen to what the community is telling us. We do that with just about every item that comes across the agenda. So yes, there are many documents, the Auditor General, the items that we turn into the Department of Education, so on and so forth. But if our community is requesting something specific, we as board members owe it to work that and follow through on that. And that's why we're sitting up here. So
Before you answer that, Ms. Rodriguez will respond. I think we better be careful, since that is a proposed agenda item, and we really can't litigate our reasons pro or con against it. I understand what Member Brown's saying, but we have to be careful. And I want to piggyback on a couple of that too. As I understand it, by law, the budget and the annual financial report that we signed last month goes to the county school superintendent, board of supervisors, superintendent of public instruction, and the Department of Ed, 4 entities. Is that right?
Madam President, yes, that is correct.
And we don't have a choice. They have to go to those places. These documents have to go down to these 4 entities, right? It's
Yes,
not an option.
it is required in statute that we submit them to those organizations.
Okay. In your presentation, you've touched on some things that I had a question about, and that was what you intend to do in terms of analysis against programs, against available funds or lack thereof. So is that typically within the purview of a CFO?
Yes, that is part of the responsibility, Madam President, of the CFO.
And you and Dr. Monroe were not waiting for the school board to direct you to do that. You were doing that regardless of us. Is that right?
Madam President, yes. There have been multiple conversations that we have had and brainstorming that we have done since I've been on board. One of the charges that I felt that is under my purview and responsibility is to look at the efficiencies, to look at how the district spends its funds, and to see if there are any areas that we might be able to make some adjustments. There have been minor adjustments that have been made. I've worked with our food service department, our transportation, maintenance and operations, technology. We've evaluated how they run their staff, their programs, their routes, to look at where we can be more efficient. We are a very lean running district. If you look at the Auditor General's comparison report that's submitted every year for classroom spending, we are at the bottom, very low or low compared to all of our comparable districts. So there are always areas that you can improve upon, just as we do with our students. And so, yes, we are under continual improvement in all of the operations areas as well.
And Dr. Monroe, a couple months ago, I think was about as forthright as you can be. You mentioned to us everything was on the table. And I remember some of the lists, some of the items on that list, and it was all inclusive, if I remember right. Everything was under consideration. Things that wouldn't necessarily be popular, but we have to consider everything, or y'all have to consider everything, bring it to us. And then one last question. You're fairly new to our district. Would you, if you had seen some improprieties in our financials, would you have brought it to the attention of Dr. Monroe and the school board?
Absolutely. That would be one of my premier responsibilities, to make sure that we are always in compliance with the way we spend our funds. That is of utmost importance to myself and the administration that we work with here. And we have many conversations around being ethical and above reproach on everything that we do.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, Member Walker?
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Rodriguez. I did I had a couple questions here. Can you guys hear me okay?
We can.
Yes.
Okay. And just wanted to confirm, you did say that we already have an annual audit performed each year, and that is at a cost.
Yes, Member Walker, thank you for the question, members of the board. We do have an annual audit that is performed every year as mandated by law, and it is conducted by Heinfeld Meach. They are a CPA firm that looks at our financials to look for any improprieties that might happen in our expenditures. They do a very strict analysis on, well, you spent this much last year in this area and you spent this much this year. Why the difference? Or you received this kind of revenue last year and this year it's less. Why the difference? We're always looking for areas where there might be some vulnerability. And Heinfeld and Meach has a questionnaire that they are given by the Auditor General's Office of over 200 questions that says, does the district do this? Does the district do this? And we have to answer all those questions, yes. And so there is a quite lengthy scrutiny with the way we manage our finances every year.
But that's just a compliance audit, correct?
Member Brown, yes, that is a compliance audit.
Anything else? Okay, thank you very much. Item 5, action consent. Is there a motion to approve item 5 as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve item 5 as presented. All in favor say aye.
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 Okay, good. Opposed? Abstained. That motion carries. Item 5 is approved as presented. All right, so now we'll go one by one on the pullouts. And I believe item 5.1 is first.
Yeah, President Hatcher, would you like me to read a recommendation for 5.1? Or the
In a moment.
Okay.
Yeah. So item 5.1 are the meeting minutes, October 11th, 2021, presented by Dr. Court Monroe.
Administration would recommend that the governing board take the following action. Move that the governing board approve the minutes as presented.
Is there a motion to
So
accept?
moved.
Okay, second.
Second.
All right, questions?
The reason I requested this to be pulled out of action consent, after the October meeting, I had a parent who was kind enough to come and speak at that meeting. She was concerned because after the meeting, the district posts an item on the website called Board Bits. And her concern was how she spoke to a specific item at that October meeting was not truthfully reflected in that Board Bits. So I told her I could not help her with that, but I would be more than happy to pass that question up to the superintendent. I think what has happened, I don't read the Board Bits since I'm here at the meeting, and I take my own minutes on my own notes anyway. After I got home, I went onto the website and saw the Board Bits that was posted from the October 11th meeting, and personally I had to agree with what the parent was concerned about. And the item in the minutes about the public comments, and they were also listed in the Board Bits. And my concern is we have heard the word transparency more and more probably in the last 6 months. This parent was concerned that if somebody would look at this Board Bits, that they would not realize or see or understand exactly the direction her comments were made. And going back to that October 11th meeting, I looked at my notes from the public comments and I looked at the Board Bits, and I had, like I said, I had to agree with her because we weren't real clear. And I think if we have to develop the trust back into the community, and again, the word transparency, if we're going to produce this Board Bits document after a meeting, and also the same item is in the meeting minutes, then I think we need to be really clear on the public and community members and parents that come up and speak to us in the public comments to make sure we're reflecting what's truthfully being said about whatever subject or item the parents are, or the community members or parents are saying to the board. I was hoping after the email reply I got back from Dr. Monroe, I was hoping that when the minutes came out, there'd be some adjustment to that, and there wasn't. The minutes, public comments is exactly word for word for what was posted in the board bits document. So with all that said, I'd like to make a revised motion to amend the minutes to reflect all public comments, to be truthful to what the parent community member is saying to the board.
Okay, is there a second on that revised amended language?
Well, let me ask a question on this. So I understand what's being asked. You're asking that the public comments from October 11th, that that whole section be revised?
Yes. There was, at the October 11th meeting, there was 17 people who spoke. One person made a comment about an audit. The other 16 were comments about what was on the agenda as a future agenda item. Much like today's meeting, we had future agenda item comments. The way the public comment section reads on both the board bits and now in the October meetings were not real clear, because some of the adults that made comments, their comments are tagged at whichever way they were citing for the agenda item, but not all the comments were tagged that way. So if we're going to tag them, we should be complete. So all the comments, whether you were for the agenda item or against the agenda item, should be noted that way. There was, of the 17 comments, the one on the audit, the other 16 comments, 3 were for a positive, but only 2 of those were noted. And of the 13 that were against or spoke against the agenda item, of that 13, 8 were not noted. So if you read through there, it's kind of a mishmash on who was saying what. And that was it was a energetic group of public comments, a lot similar to tonight. And I would hope that tonight's board bits and tonight's minutes will reflect the comments that were made pro and con to agenda items or future agenda items, or just the generic comments made about the district, so that we see that, if we're going to stand on the minutes as our document, then we should be truthful to the community that what we're putting out there was truly what was said.
Member Brown, President Hatcher, if I can jump in here. So correct me if I'm wrong, Jennifer, but under open meeting law, we're required to either video a board meeting so people can watch it, or to keep minutes. In Cave Creek Unified School District, we do both of those. Okay, so it's not even an either or, we do both of those. In addition, when I came to this district, we had this idea of board bits, which I haven't seen happen in any other district, which could potentially maybe cause some conflict, and maybe we'll discontinue that practice because we're already going above and beyond to be truthful, to be honest. And if someone really wants to read, they can read the minutes, or they can tune in to watch the video and see exactly what the person has spoken on for 3 minutes. I don't think it's a real efficient practice to detail every single thing that they put, and I don't think that that's a very common practice with other districts. But I will say we do keep our minutes, and we also keep video, so we do double. So the state would ask us to do 1, and we already do 2. If the board bits is causing confusion, we'll look at that, and maybe that is a practice we discontinue. As I mentioned, I've seen only one other district in the state that does something like that, and I certainly don't want to cause any confusion. But I do want to make it clear to the board that not only do we comply, we go above and beyond, because we have the minutes that the board is looking in front of them, and we also have the video that people can tune in and watch the whole context of all the comments that were made tonight or at that meeting.
Okay.
So what you're asking is that the wordsmithing just get cleaned up?
Well, I think we should be truthful on what's being said. I mean, if we need to eliminate the board bits, that's fine. If that's an extra little document that maybe morphed into what it is now, and if that piece needs to go away for time constraints and we don't have the manpower to put it together, however it may be, that's fine. That can disappear. But I think the public comments, we encourage the public to come and talk. We want parents to come to talk. We want community members to come and give public comments to the board. We need that kind of feedback. But we also then need to be truthful on what's being said. And that's where we're missing the boat.
So there was a comment recorded in the public comments that was incorrect.
The public comments as listed in the minutes are not clear. Some people that made their comments, it's clear what direction or how they were talking about the agenda item, future agenda item that was on the agenda. But not all of them are marked that way.
So you're asking for consistency?
Yes, because some of them were put on there that they were for or against that said a future agenda item, but not all of them were marked that way. And just like tonight, we had comments that went both ways on some of the future agenda items, and I would hope that we would tag that as they were in favor of or they were not in favor of said a future agenda item.
Okay.
Well, and President Hatcher, members of the board, also, when someone really wants clarity, they can watch the video and they can watch for 45 minutes to see the whole content of what's being explained. You can hear Mrs. Scotto's fingers flying for all the conversations that we possibly have. So we do our best to collect that in the minutes as she re-listens in the written minutes. And then again, that's what's required by law. And Cave Creek goes above and beyond because we also have video that people can YouTube. You guys can go home and you can YouTube and you can watch all the comments. And so you can get the truth and the transparency, all that you need out there so that we're not misleading anyone.
Well, I appreciate your comments. I was asking Scott all of these questions so that I understood where he was going. And yes, we do videos and we have written minutes, but the only one that has a lengthy shelf life is the written minutes, because unless things are going to change, our video after the school year is done in August will start with new videos, so the videos for this school year will disappear, so having the access to that goes away. And the written, as a whole, I look at written minutes as kind of a log. If someone was not at a meeting or if there was something that you question, like, oh wait, how did that go? That's what the minutes are for, as a refresher, a reminder of this is what we did. So knowing that's how I use the minutes, if Scott feels that something was not clarified, made clear, we would, at some point in the future, there may not be a video available to reference or cross-reference. So I get that.
And Member Busby, the original comment from Mr. Brown, not trying to put words in his mouth, but was that there was confusion about the board bits. So we're talking now.
That's why I was asking all the questions, because I was getting a little confused. Are we talking about the minutes or the board bits?
Well, the same verbiage that was listed in the board bits under public comments is word for word the same now under item 3 in the meeting minutes of October 11th. So there was no change, there was no improvement. We didn't clarify. It's word for word. If we're going to be truthful in the minutes, then we need to be truthful when the public is commenting to us.
So how specifically, what do you want modified?
Well, if you look at the very first comment that was made, it was listed as no. So we could put that in a parentheses and if the comment was made that was a positive or a yes, then we could put the yes in the parentheses. Just like tonight, we had people that were yes for a future agenda item, and we had just people that were no for the same future agenda item. I think we just need to be clear about this. Because I agree. The written minutes is what we're going to stand on. The videos are going to fade away. You'll never find them. You can't look them up. I'm not in front of a computer. But if I've got a printed minutes that I can refer back to, then we've got that. We have board items come up all the time, and I go back and look at prior meeting minutes. How did we discuss that? What questions were raised, so I don't raise the same questions again. Maybe the answer is right there. If it's not in the minutes, I go back to my notes, because I trust my notes more than I do the minutes anyway. And obviously, if we can't get the public comments right and earn the trust of the public, we've got a problem.
How long will videos be filed when we switch? Forever.
Forever.
So once we go to board docs, then the videos for this whole school year will be available?
Past school year, 1 year, we keep 1 year. And then they're archived, but they're available forever on YouTube.
So they're archived. They may be a little easier to access for a year, but you can still access past years. So as we switch to board docs in the future, we'll still be able to retrieve
That's not the point of the item. The point is, we need to be truthful when parents and community members come up and talk to us in public comments. That's the whole point here. And not just pick and choose whoever's producing the board bits, just pick and choose if it was a favorable or an unfavorable comment to whatever the item, whether it's an agenda item or future agenda item or just a general comment.
So do we want to get rid of the board bits? And these minutes are more like a transcription to me. But
do you want to?
Other organizations.
Yeah, let's let Mrs. Scotto kind of respond to.
When I do the board bits and the board minutes and it comes to public comment, I put down exactly what the person puts down on their public comment form. I don't pick, I don't choose, I don't put words in their mouth. I just write what they write. Some you'll see, item 8.1, because that's what they wrote on what they're going to talk about.
Then do we need to go back and reevaluate that form? Because now you're saying it's the public speaker's fault for not being truthful.
No, actually, she's just saying that what they put on the form as the topic for what they speak is what she puts into the minutes. So that way Julia isn't put in an unfair position to interpret or to lack clarity or what have you, but whatever they write down, I want to speak on item 8.2, she'll put, I want to speak on item 8.2.
Well, what happens to those forms after the meeting? They're destroyed, they're archived, they're stuck with the minutes?
They become part of the board minutes and they become part of the board book that we have to keep a paper copy forever.
Well, then perhaps the fix to this maybe would be to, under public comments, note something to the effect of as designated by the speaker or something to that effect that draws reference to this is why it was there, this is what the speaker, public comments, you followed what I'm saying, John Doe turned in his form and these people were speaking to whatever is noted after their name. So then it's made clear why it'll say so-and-so 8.1 mask.
So on what you're saying, Member Busby, is like under public comments, you can almost put in parentheses and say what the speaker put on the form.
Or
something like that.
To that effect, yes. So then it's understood why it's like this. So it's...
I think just making people aware of how the form is requested by the public comments. I don't believe Ms. Scotto gets a copy of everyone's prepared speech, so to say, especially since we never know how long time is going to be, depending on how many people are there. But I guess if you just maybe it just lists the name of people that spoke, and that's why we have a video. That's the exact truth for transparency at all times.
Basically, what you're saying is that you're getting this stuff from their form. So if they say no mask mandate, then you put no mask mandate. If they say mask mandate, you put mask mandate. Okay.
Or maybe put as noted on public comment form, or something to that
Yeah,
effect.
refers to form.
President Hatcher, members of the board, I think that's a very reasonable solution that we could just add next to public comments, put something like that in parentheses, just to add extra clarity to what Member Brown is speaking about, and then reconsider the board bits so that we don't have any confusion out there.
Okay, then I'd like to make a motion to amend these minutes to add into public comments a notation as noted on the public comment form, or something to that effect.
Yeah, is noted on the public comment form.
form.
That sounds clear.
So then it's made clear, this is what that person came to talk about. It's not a transcription of their words. It's just, this is the topic they came to speak about. Okay.
I second that motion.
But how does that fix the minutes of October 11th, 2021?
The way I'm understanding it, whoever came to speak, they've filled out these public comment forms, and what's on here, there's a line that says topic.
Right.
And however person X fills out the topic, that line, you know, if they say I want to talk about widgets, or if they say I want to talk about agenda item 12.2, that's what Julia takes, is whatever they've actually written, and they put it there. And with the minutes, our agenda is, the topics to the agenda are identified on the minutes.
So you want to eliminate any direction that was spoken by the public speaker? Whether they were for or against a specific item or a future agenda item?
No, what Member Busby's saying is we simply clarify that the topic they spoke on is what they wrote down on the card.
Then do we need to update this form? Is this form something that we can?
I think the form is fine. What we can simply do is have a motion to revise these October 11th minutes, and we'll put that wording that Member Busby said in parentheses as indicated on the, and that'll clarify everything. It'll be
Because as I'm understanding it, the minutes, Julia hasn't sat there and said, okay, you know, person A was pro or con, person B was pro or con. All she did was take the forms, and under the line where it says topic, she just wrote down what they wrote in topics as the topic. So it was that was actually what that person wrote. That's what I'm understanding. Am I correct? Okay.
I think we'd get into some trouble if we started to really try and interpret everything that they were trying to say.
absolutely.
So it's
Well, on a subject that was as emotionally charged as the agenda item was at that October 11th meeting, I think that's why this has come up.
I understand that, but I'm trying to find
I think
ground
that
here.
I think that would be a very reasonable solution, very common sense solution. We could even amend these minutes to include those words next to the public comments, and that will get the clarity from October 11th, and then moving forward.
Because in the minutes, you know, for October 11th, if you flip through, it'll even, under future agenda items, it has 8.1. So anybody after their name, if it's listed 8.1, if someone's reading the minutes in their entirety, they're going to see what it was that they were voting on. So it's
Correct, but if they don't know what that person, how that person's comments were made, if they were for or against. I mean, like, how are we going to handle tonight's comments? How are we going to handle tonight's comments? It's the same, you know, we had people speak that were for a future agenda item. We had people speak that were against the same agenda item. So you're just going to put the name and then whether they were however, 8.2, and then next month somebody's going to say, well, wait a second. If I'm reading this, it looks like I was supporting 8.2, but I was against 8.2, or vice versa.
I think this is, we're going around.
I think that happens often.
So
sometimes they don't even get to what they will give background of what they're speaking to, and we still, while listening, don't hear if they're for or against something because their time runs out. That happened numerous times in previous board meetings.
There's two different things. These public comments as recorded in the minutes. What I'm hearing is there's two different approaches to this. Julia's just saying, hey, person came, this is the topic they spoke to. That's what she's got here. There are people apparently who read it differently. Their interpretation is different. And they're reading it as, 8.1 masks. So it now looks like, I came to speak in favor of masks. And I think, is that how, okay, so that's where the problem lies. So I don't know, do we put this is the topic that the person came to speak on?
Well, why can't we do what you had suggested before, is that Julia continue what she's doing, and there's a disclaimer or a set of directions that if someone is reading the minutes, you say, if you want, you can listen to the video if you want to know which way the public voted. So you're keeping this. You're staying with fidelity. Sorry, I'm getting tired. Fidelity to what they've said, and then they can go back. You can direct them in the minutes if you choose to hear the direct conversation and direct comment. Please see the video.
Member Hatcher, I would even say, and we'll just amend that form and we'll put a line near the bottom that says your topic, whatever you fill in as the topic will be listed in the minutes, just something simple in parentheses.
Yeah.
So it's very clear.
All right.
That'd be good.
So we can certainly do that.
I call the question. I think we've talked about this one enough.
Okay, so it is.
It was amended.
Right. Yep, we have a first and second based on Member Busby's amendment. Do you want to? I think we know what that amendment. Do we know what the amendment is? Let's be clear. Okay. All right. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed?
Nay.
Abstained. All right. The amendment to 5.1 passes. Okey doke. Moving on. Item 5.4. Payment vouchers presented by Ms. Rodriguez.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. The recommendation of administration would be that the governing board move to approve the payment vouchers as presented.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Questions, comments?
I just had a question. In reviewing the vouchers, we had a very large ESSER 3 expenditure on voucher 1013 that was dated October 12th, and I just wanted to give Mrs. Rodriguez a chance to elaborate on that if possible.
Yes, thank you, Member Brown, members of the board. The voucher that Member Brown is referring to is voucher 1013. This is a payroll voucher, so there's a couple of different kind of vouchers in our packets. One is a payroll voucher and the other is a purchasing voucher. This particular payroll voucher, you can see a significant amount of the ESSER 3 money that was paid out, $668,499.13. That was the retention stipends that the governing board approved at the last meeting for our classified staff received $1,500 for returning to work from last year to this year. Our teachers received $750 in that retention, and that was the total amount that we paid for that. Thank you, Member Brown, for the question.
Thank you, Mrs. Rodriguez.
Anything else? Any other questions?
That's a great, that's a great use to try to get some of that stipend, or not stipend, but some of that retention money down to staff and teachers.
All right. No other comments? Hearing none, it's been moved and seconded to approve item 5.4 as presented. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstain. Motion carries. Item 5.4 is approved as presented. Okay, item 5.7, I believe, is next. 5.5. Item 5.5, monthly enrollment report, presented by Ms. Rodriguez.
Yes, thank you, Madam President, members of the board. This is an informational item, so I'll entertain any questions that Member Busby may have.
I pulled this out because after the one team presentation and the efforts that's being made for the alignment and to grow the learning opportunities and everything, I wanted to pull this out and say, okay, I'm looking for better numbers as we go forward. So I mean this in a positive way. You know, from last month to this month, we kind of went in the wrong direction. And with all of the efforts you guys are making to make things good. So next month, maybe it'll go the other direction. So that's all.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Member Busby.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I don't know that we had a motion on that one, but is there a motion to approve item 5.5 as presented?
So moved.
Is there a second? All right.
Second.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded to approve item 5.5 as presented. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain. The motion carries. Item 5.5 is approved as presented. All right. Item 5.7.
Yes, Madam President, thank you, members of the board.
Ms. Rodriguez, let me just read that for a minute, please.
Sure.
Fiscal year 2021 School Facilities Board Preventive Maintenance Reporting Statement presented by Ms. Rodriguez.
Sorry, thank you.
It's all right.
Yes, Madam President, members of the board, the recommendation from administration is to move the governing board approve the FY 2021 School Facilities Board Preventative Maintenance Reporting Statement as submitted. And Mr. Sentine's here if there are any questions.
Okay, is there a motion to approve item 5.7?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, questions, comments?
The question I had and why I asked to pull this out, this is the form that we send into the state as we're required to. Why do we continue to list Cave Creek Elementary School on this? Because we sold that facility back in March or April of 2014. So we should probably have this taken off our books. I mean, that's 7 years ago now.
Yeah, let's have Mr. Santina come up to the mic and comment on that.
President Hatcher, members of the board, this is a pre-filled document that the state has. We've told our liaison which school, that the Cave Creek Elementary wasn't part of the district anymore. Last year's report, if you remember, they actually left out Sonoran Trails and Lone Mountain. So we know that there's issues with what they ask us to report. It's not stopping us from getting money from them. We just kind of, when they update, they'll update it. They are aware that we don't own the property. They just haven't deleted it from our form.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any more questions or comments? Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve item 5.7 as presented. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? I didn't hear Member Walker. Did you, Ms. Scotto?
Member Walker, are you there?
I am.
Did you vote on that one, 5.7?
Yes, with an aye.
Okay. Motion carries. Next one, the last one. 5.8, agreement for clinical practicum and/or internship educational agreement between Northern Arizona University and Cave Creek Unified School District, presented by Ms. Rodriguez.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. Members of the board, administration recommends that the governing board move forward to approve the agreement for clinical practicum and/or external internal internship education agreement between Northern Arizona University and Cave Creek Unified School District as presented.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay.
Okay, I just have a couple questions. In the background, it refers to acting athletic trainer. Is that a reference to a student or to the person who's employed as a trainer at Cactus Shadows?
Member Busby, when you referring to background?
The background on 5.8 on page 1, the actual agenda item. Keep going back up. Back to the beginning of this. Keep next page up. Page 112.
Right here.
There.
Oh,
Right
okay.
here.
Thank you.
Okay, the next to the last line under background where it says NAU, relationship with NAU and holds the acting athletic trainer to a higher standard. So is that referring to a student or is that referring to the person who's employed as a trainer in the district?
That would be the athletic director that is acting on behalf of the district. So that would be our employee that will be working with the interns from the university.
But that position's not that's a set position. That's not an acting position. That's not like.
Correct. The wording probably is a little bit confusing. I would agree with you.
Any more comments or questions?
Yeah, I do have two more questions. On page 1 of the contract, the effective date of this agreement will begin on blank and will end on blank. We're to approve a contract to initiate this relationship. So what date does this begin on and what date is it supposed to end on?
So this will be effective tomorrow after, and if the governing board chooses to approve this agreement, and it will be for a 5-year period.
So it'll go until 11/16 of 2026?
Correct.
Okay. And then my last question is on page 4, under miscellaneous, it says to facility and it's blank. So what is supposed to be filled in there?
We are the acting facility. I will enter the district name, Unified School District, with Cactus Shadows, because that is the facility that they will be receiving the internship, because that is the facility we have an athletic trainer at. And then these typically, we will have a contact at the facility, whether that be the principal or someone in that oversees the athletic program be the contact for the school.
Okay, well then I want to amend the motion to include the insertion of the dates, the begin date of November 16th, 2021 with an end date of November 26, 2026, and the inclusion of the facility information listing the district in Cactus Shadows.
Second that.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded to amend 5.8 as Member Busby just described. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain. Member Walker, did you say anything?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. The motion carries. Item 5.8 is amended as presented.
President Hatcher, let me jump in here before we move. First of all, it's close to 9 o'clock,
Yep.
so we may need to take a vote there. But very quickly, I wanted to welcome some of our new administrators. Cindy, you want to stand up? Cindy Black is in the audience. I want to introduce Cindy. Cindy, thank you for staying late. So maybe we should have put this at the beginning. Cindy's serving as our interim assistant principal at Cactus Shadows. She has 15 years of experience as a K-12 educator in Arizona. She served as a teacher in the elementary, middle, and the high school settings, and most recently was an instructional coach who provided teacher support, focusing on needs-based professional development. She has a Bachelor's of Arts in General Arts from York University, a post-bac in education from ASU, with a focus in technology, and her master's in educational leadership from NAU. So Cindy, welcome. We're glad to have you. I would also like to welcome Angela Pantaleone. I don't think she could be here tonight. She joins the Cactus Shadows team as the interim dean of students. She has 15 years of experience at the high school level. She's consistently been recognized as a leader on her campus. She completed the Aspiring Administrator program in Scottsdale. She earned her BA from Texas A&M University and her master's in educational administration from Grand Canyon University. So we'd like to welcome Angela, even though she's not here with us tonight. And finally, we'd like to welcome Brandy. Brandy, you want to stand? She's sitting here with our elementary principals. Brandy Baca Dunlap has over 20 years of experience as an educator. She's been in Paradise Valley for 15 years. Where she was an elementary teacher, state testing coordinator, among other things. She's worked on curriculum development, teacher mentoring. She has her BA in elementary education from the College of Santa Fe and her master's in administrative leadership from NAU. She lives in North Phoenix with her husband and her 2 children, and she will be the interim principal at Desert Willow Elementary School, where 2 of her children are part of the Spanish World Language program there. So welcome. We're glad to have you.
Is that it, Dr. Monroe?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to make a motion to extend the meeting past 9 o'clock. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
What was that, Member Walker?
Aye.
Okay. Opposed? Abstained. Motion carries. All righty. Item 6, old business. Item 6.1, approval of superintendent's performance-based pay plan, presented by Dr. Court Monroe and Ms. Marcy Rodriguez.
President Hatcher, members of the board, the superintendent pay for performance goals per state law and per contract require the governing board adopt a written plan for performance-based pay as an alternate to using the statutory plan. Accordingly, the board must adopt goals to measure the superintendent against. This is a follow-up from the item that was tabled at the last board meeting. The language of the goals have been revised to reflect a more measurable approach with some indicators of success, and the recommendation is to adopt the resolution for the pay for performance goals as written. I think I have, let me see here. The 21-22 superintendent district goals and 3-year fiscal action plan were presented together to the board on August 9th, and attached is the resolution regarding the performance-based pay and the accompanying superintendent district goals. The administration would recommend that the governing board take the following action: approve the resolution outlining the superintendent's performance-based pay plan for the 21-22 school year.
So moved.
Second. Questions or comments? We read the resolution last time, so I don't know that we need to read it again. It is public in the board book, correct? Okay?
Correct.
We can if the board desires.
I have a question, and this is, I guess, for clarification. In Dr. Monroe's contract, it states, in accordance with ARS 15-341A39, but this background is referring to just the entire of 39. So by contract, we're supposed to adhere to Section 39, subset A, by the contract. So having a resolution to deviate from that, does that mess up the contract?
Jennifer, did you want to come address that, please?
President Hatcher, Ms. Busby. So paragraph 3.2 of Dr. Monroe's contract says that in accordance with ARS 15341A39, the parties agree that during the term of the contract, up to 10% of Dr. Monroe's contract will be designated as performance-based pay. The contract does not require you to use the statutory formula. That reference to the statutory formula in that paragraph also contains the language that would allow you to adopt an alternative plan. So the proposal before you is to adopt an alternative plan.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments?
I guess I look at, as it was presented to the board at the August 9th, 2021 meeting, at the superintendent/district goals and 3-year fiscal action plan was item 4.1, which was just a presentation for information only. No action needed on this presentation, as we stated it in our document. So now, as I read through this, it's like we're standing on this hill that information that was given to us back in this August meeting was discussed and approved by the governing board, which it was not. There was only a small handful of questions. I probably shouldn't even say handful. There was a few questions asked, and it was more about not necessarily the goals, but more the 3-year fiscal action plan, I think, is where some of the questions came about. So now we fast forward to October, and we're presented this as this is what we've approved, and the board has not approved any of these goals. You know, we've seen goals, and now we've seen a revision of goals, and it's like, well, I feel like I'm kind of getting played the shell game here. You know, it was presented in August. Well, that's great, but we never approved it. So I'm a little disappointed that even after we tabled it and I thought we'd have a little more clarity or a little better item to how it was discussed. I'm still not 100% sure why we're deviating from state statute to generate our own resolution for the performance pay. You know, if we have the statute and that's how we have that option in the contract, then maybe we should look at that a little harder.
Member Brown, President Hatcher, members of the board, I will say in my research and talking to superintendents and also communicating with Arizona school administrators, it was communicated to me that there was not one district that they were aware of where the superintendent's performance-based pay was based on the statute. These goals reflect a very good attempt to include a lot of the changes that are happening in our organization. I've only been here 11 months, haven't completed a first year, and there's a lot of systems that have to be in place. And it jives with a lot of the things that were presented earlier. And so if there's something that I can help the board understand a little more clearly, I would love to do that.
Well, why wasn't a resolution presented to the board for your performance pay that was paid out in June after your first 6 months on job?
Jennifer, you want to come up and speak to that?
No, I'd rather have you answer it, Dr. Monroe.
And I'm going to ask Jennifer to come and answer it.
Well, this would be the canned answer of all answers here.
President Hatcher, Mr. Brown, it's my understanding that there was not a resolution adopted because that was only a half a year worth of evaluating Dr. Monroe. So it was based upon the conversations that Ms. Hatcher and I had when this was being presented in June, was to have the board determine what Dr. Monroe's performance-based pay should be based upon a more generalized evaluation.
So Member Hatcher spoke for the entire board without letting the board know that?
No, no, sir. That was the discussion that was had, and then it was presented to the board, and the board as a whole, sometime in June, voted on awarding Dr. Monroe the full amount of his performance-based pay, as I understand it. So legal advice was given that you could pursue that because there was no formula adopted other than what was applicable for Dr. Burdick.
Right, so what you're referring to is just when the board always votes every June to either award performance-based pay or not. That's the conversation and the business that was conducted. That's what you're referring to right now, isn't it?
Yes, ma'am. That's
Because
exactly correct.
we didn't have a resolution in place. And are we being brought a resolution because Dr. Monroe is a new superintendent, or?
So that's a good question, Ms. Hatcher. My review of my files is that when the performance-based pay statute arose, I was representing your district. Dr. Burdick had a resolution that was adopted at that time. I think what happened was that just kept rolling over, and you based her performance-based pay upon the district goals that the board looked at every year. The safest and cleanest way to do that, this process, is for the board to adopt its own performance-based pay for Dr. Monroe. So the action that's presented before you tonight would bring you into compliance both with the statute and with his contract.
Okay. So I just need to get clarity in my head about the resolution. So this resolution is a new resolution starting, not a carryover, just a new resolution for Dr. Monroe. That's okay. And then the other conversation about goals and so forth. As far as the ARS goals, they're really subjective. They've got dates: 2008, 2009 school year, measurements against pupils' academic results in those school years. I don't even know how that's relevant. The district goals that you've presented us with the bullet points are, to me, very specific. They're refined, and they have to do with what your job entails. So I much prefer these kinds of goals as to what the ARS's alternative is.
But we've approved and we're working on new evaluations for our teachers, and we're holding them to more accountable goals than we're going to hold our superintendent to. I don't understand how that's fair. Member Hatcher, you've received those evaluations over the years. They have to be more specific than what we're seeing in this document, correct?
So, President Hatcher, Member Brown, and we're still going through that effectiveness project. We haven't made any decisions. We haven't brought anything forward to the governing board, and so far we have not even had that discussion regarding what that looks like.
So this year we're using the current form that we've been using for years.
Yep.
Member Hatcher was an employee of the district. Over the past years, you had that form given to you. That form was more specific than what we have currently for the superintendent, correct?
It's been a while since I've been evaluated. I don't remember it being terribly specific. The language isn't real specific that I recall.
So what we've asked our teachers to do this year is to have a site goal as well as a performance goal for their students. So that's something that's professional and something that's more culture, or a professional and a performance.
Well, from some of the comments some of our teachers gave tonight, it sounds like we're asking them to do way more than above and beyond the education piece. And we had several comments tonight that were...
I'm not going to deny that we don't have high standards. We have very high standards.
No,
absolutely.
I'm not saying we don't have high standards. I'm just saying how much... We heard it from teachers that were here. How much more can we ask them to do? And we're holding them accountable, but then we're drawing a hard line in the sand, but then we're all hearts and flowers on the superintendent review. I don't understand.
Member Brown, the current evaluation tool, actually, what we've asked with the goals is that they have those goals. That does not get fed into their actual evaluation. The actual evaluation that you guys have implemented in the past, that the district has implemented, is 6 common domains, but that specific goal or a SMART goal or the professional pieces is not input into that, from my understanding.
So then what are we asking our teachers to do that's above and beyond? The comments that were made tonight, I mean, I felt bad for the teachers. We're asking them to do more and more and more. We're holding them to a higher standard than the superintendent, and that's the piece I don't like.
I would President Hatcher, members of the board, I would remind the board that there is a separate superintendent evaluation tool that I am evaluated on that the board performs outside of the performance-based goals, just to get back on topic of where we were.
As I understand it, you would have to show us the progress on these goals. You would present that to us as a board, and then if we feel that you have presented it the right, so one way or another, we would base your performance pay on that. Is that correct?
Sort of, Member Fortney. So the goals, yes, I would update the board on these goals. My evaluation is separate, and obviously there's going to be some, there's going to be some interwoven elements there. But yeah, there would be, again, these are very big, broad goals, as you can see, that align with our strategic plan, and people are working under. There's a lot of systems to put into place, and so I would be bringing the board updates, beginning of the year, mid-year, end of the year, to assess the progress on those goals. And then you also have the professional piece where I'm evaluated on the other standards.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I've looked at 2 superintendent goals online. I think it was Deer Valley and PV, if I'm not mistaken. I've also talked to 2 board people from other school boards, asking them about their superintendent's performance-based goals. And the 2 that I saw online were very similar to this. The 2 board members, they said the same thing, that theirs were very similar to what Dr. Monroe has created here. So, I believe this is in line with a performance-based goals.
Is there a rubric that's used for teachers for their evaluation?
Yes, we have a rubric that was developed by teachers with teachers in conjunction with the Charlotte Danielson model. And so we use that when we do observations and then the evaluation at the end of the year.
The goals, the whole premise of the goals is good. Where I struggle with this is we don't have a rubric, and there's not a lot of ways to quantify any of these goals. It's like, well, yeah, okay, I guess you did that. And so thinking about what Scott was saying, if the teachers have a rubric when they're evaluated that works in conjunction with whatever their goals are, maybe that's something for a future discussion, that we develop some sort of a rubric. But being specific to this, if these are the goals, then how do we quantify them so that it's not just a subjective, if we're going to increase enrollment, well, we could get one more kid than we had this time last year, and we increased enrollment. Or are we going to say, increase enrollment by some sort of a quantifiable number, either an actual number, by 25 students or by 10%? And are we going to do, is that something that's doable?
To me, there are different ways. Quantifiable, you normally think of associated with numbers. But I also think about it as our goals met, not necessarily associated with a number. So you have a goal. Did you meet your goal? So as I looked at these bullet points, I thought, is there a way to demonstrate that Dr. Monroe has met these goals? And I think there is. I hope that he intends to show us how he's met the goals, because otherwise, we'd be reluctant to give him a performance-based pay. The other thing, when it comes to tying teachers or superintendents, well, let's just stick with superintendents, to retention of students, I think there are factors right now out of a superintendent's hand, and it's what we keep talking about, and it's funding. And that funding, unless the state adjusts the funding formula, and that's the root of it, that's one. The second one is passing bonds, and the other one, and the three main ones, passing overrides. So that's kind of out of a superintendent's hands. Those are big, tall orders. And I don't think it's fair to tie a superintendent to that. I do think it's fair that we ask for a plan and to see implementation of a plan that he can present to us and say, yeah, here's what we're doing to retain students. How are we doing on that? I think that's fair. But to tie that to a number, just like tying teachers to test scores, too many variables outside of the hands.
If I'm understanding you correctly, you're reviewing these goals, and the success of many of these goals are tied to whether a bond or an override passes. Am I correct in understanding that?
No.
Okay.
No, I'm just saying on the one that
Okay.
you mentioned is.
Okay, so if that's tied to whether or not we pass an override or a bond, that's an unfair goal, because so that shouldn't even be on here, or it should be there should be an if-then kind of a thing. If it passes, it's this goal, and if it doesn't pass, this is how the goal looks, because it's not, we haven't even gone down the road. Are we going to attempt to do an override? So to hang your hat on that, the revenue coming from that is like more than futuristic.
I'd like to just add.
Well, no, I'm speaking to what you were mentioning, that a lot of this is out of Dr. Monroe's hand because of
No, not this
passage.
stuff. Not this stuff. I was talking specifically to when you said, for example, quantifiable by recapture of students. That's specifically what I was talking about, not these.
Passing a bond or an override shouldn't have a lot to do with how many kids we have in a classroom. If, it's about what product we have. Our product is education. And, this one team presentation I thought was great. And I am looking to that to have huge amounts of success. And it's things like that should be the draw. Whether or not we pass a bond or an override should have nothing to do with, we're only going to get kids if we pass one of these initiatives.
Okay.
There's nothing about a bond or override in these goals.
I know, but
I didn't finish my thought, so I get where you're coming from. Okay, so to finish my thought, then, sorry about that, is that I think that the reason why a lot of teachers are leaving or contemplating leaving, I think the reason why parents take their kids elsewhere has to do with the limitations, and the root cause of the limitations is the funding problem. So other districts are more competitive for teachers and for students, for parents, because they can offer more, and that's what I meant in terms of the fiscal resources, that we just simply cannot put on all these programs because we don't have the money. So I believe that's why we lose a lot of kids.
Okay.
Yeah, that's.
Let me add the comment here that the superintendent and his excellence committee brought forward to the board the proposal for the bond. That didn't come from us. So I would assume if the superintendent endorsed that he would then feel he could get that passed into community.
Yeah,
History speaks otherwise.
right, yeah.
But that didn't come from the board. That
No.
came from the superintendent
Right.
and one of his committees.
Mhm.
I go back to this was the handout we received at the August 13th meeting. Superintendent goals was two items on this page, 2 items on this page. Nowhere in the approved meeting minutes was it specific that said those 4 little paragraphs was what we're going to base a future performance pay program or payout or rubric or whatever on. There's nothing in the minutes that says that. We sat here, we saw this. There's 4 lines in the minutes that talks about, basically it relists the 4 initiatives, and then the rest of this is all about the 3-year financial plan, you know, what he would hope to do moving on. And Dr. Monroe had, 12, 14 slides that day, or however many pieces of paper I printed up of slides. So nowhere did we ever circle back and say, well, those 4 initiatives is going to be the basis for a performance plan program. So then at the last meeting, we get this resolution, and it's like, well, wait a second, you're like, I go back, I was like, maybe if we'd have realized that presentation back in August was a little more specific to the performance pay, maybe then we'd have asked some better questions and had a better discussion.
Isn't that what we're doing now, though? We're saying, are we approving these or not? That's what we're doing now.
But if you read the agenda item on the cover page, 2021-2022 superintendent/district goals and 3-year fiscal plan was presented together to the board on August 9th, 2021. But we had no thorough discussion and no board vote to approve those. It was a discussion-only item.
So yeah, I believe that's what we're doing right now.
Then we should do that now.
Well,
I believe this is very similar to any type of leader in any type of business. They have their goals, and us are the ones that get to decide basically on performance-based pay, or a bonus is based upon those goals. Is there something about these 4 initiatives that you do not like, or you'd like to see something different because they don't align with August?
I guess if we were presented this in August, I guess I would have liked to at least had the information that this is going to be the basis of the performance pay moving forward that we'll bring to the board in December at the mid-year discussion that we have with the superintendent. Because really, if you look at the 4 district goals, I mean, it's the same 4 initiatives, and they are expanded out a little bit. I guess I expected more or expected better, and I'm just not seeing it. So if Member Hatcher wants to call the question and we vote, then that's fine.
Can I ask just one question? Is the intent of these goals to mirror the superintendent's job description, or is it to exceed the job description?
I don't know. I don't know. What I know based on my research, and that's the only reason I'm speaking to it.
Because there's an evaluation of duties, and your evaluation of duties is generally what's in your job description. Okay, so now we're talking about duties, goals for a performance-based pay. Okay, so how does that correlate to the job description, or is it totally separate from the job description?
I remember Busby. I think it can be a little bit of both. It's pretty standard for superintendents in their contracts to have pay for performance, and they usually have 3 or 4 strategies that are high yield strategies that may align to the job description, but advance the district forward with regards to student achievement and culture and retention of staff and those kind of things. So those may be reflected in the job description possibly.
Okay, and just to be clear, I'm not questioning whether or not there should be a performance-based pay to this. I'm just trying to understand how these pieces, how it's envisioned that they all fit together. And based on what collective comments, I still go back to, okay, like for instance, you have Initiative 2 by the end of the next school year, the 21-22 school year, educate community stakeholders on school finance and various facets, so on and so forth. Okay, so how do we determine if that's been successfully achieved or not? Because you got these bullet points, so if there's no space utilized by EVIT at dams, then we can say, oh, you didn't do that one, cross that one off, and that's how we're supposed to go about equating goals to.
Yeah, is each initiative 25%, and then, like Initiative 2 has 5 items, so is each one of those items 5%? And if you failed, if we don't utilize dams, then that's 5% out of that 25 you don't get. I mean, is that?
I think President Etcher, Member Brown, Member Busby, I think the 25% is fair with 4 initiatives. I think that's fair, definitely. And I do think that evidence, things are evidence-based. So evidence is brought forward at the mid-year progress and then at the end. And then the board, if I remember right, according to the contract language and the resolution, determines whether the superintendent made, whatever the wording is, substantial progress or met the goals at that point. I do think the 25% comment is very fair, though, since there's 4 initiatives.
And when we discuss this in executive session, because when we discuss the money, it'll be in there, we could then talk about that very thing that Member Brown just brought up. That's the place where we'll discuss it and then bring it out publicly to vote on.
Now, you may already have this embedded in here, so if so, let me know where. About either bringing back programs that we no longer offer that have been taken away over the last couple of years, or, like for instance, expanding the catalog at Cactus Shadows, which I know there's been discussion about that, and that I'm assuming is part of the one team project is to expand that. But are any of those types of things embedded in this?
Member Busby, I think when the board sees the strategic plan that we have coming forward from the community, a lot of those things will be reflected as far as expanded student choice with regards to those programs. However, with Mrs. Rodriguez's presentations tonight, we have to be very careful and creative of how we're able to fund those things, and we certainly don't want to overpromise when we have these limitations with funding these programs because of a failed bond or a potential future override or what have you. That's why Initiative 2 was in there for us to really help educate the community and to try to find some of these funding streams to make those things available. So to answer your question, yes, you'll see a lot of those things. You'll actually see that in the strategic plan, how student choice and college and career planning and all of those things will be a big part of that. So hopefully we can get to a point financially where we can bring back and make a lot more programs robust. I think we just have to very critically do it at this point with a lot of the limitations that we have with some of our funding.
Okay. More questions?
This resolution is just for the current school year, correct?
is it current school year or is it the life of the contract?
This is 21.
Do you want to comment on that, Jennifer?
Yeah, so,
Madam President, Mr. Brown, the resolution as written is just for this current school year, so the governing board would have the opportunity to readopt different goals, look at different things. Typically, that would only change the Exhibit A. So the resolution portion would stay the same, but you would adopt different goals if you want Dr. Monroe to focus on different things in the 22-23 school year.
okay, thank you. All righty, we ready? All right, it's been moved and seconded to approve item 6.1, approval of superintendent's performance-based pay plan as presented. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Abstain. Motion carries. Item 7, new business, there is none. Item 8, future agenda items. This is a reminder that items 8.1 and 8.5 are up and down votes only. There's no discussion, nor are we able to explain our votes. 8.1, submitted by member Janet Busby, presented by me, Beth Hatcher. The board is encouraged to submit questions regarding the board book to the superintendent before the board meeting. Generally, responses are provided in a Friday board update. Unfortunately, many of the board's questions never reach the public domain, leaving an unfavorable impression on our stakeholders. I would like the board to discuss ways to ensure transparency for our stakeholders regarding board member questions related to the board book material and the corresponding responses. All right, the recommendation is that the board will take the following action. Vote to approve placement on an upcoming agenda. Is there a motion to approve? 8.1 is presented.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve item 8.1 as presented. Let me do a roll call on these so we can be clear. Let's see. Member Busby, do you want to go first since that's your...
Aye.
Okay, Member Walker, I'm just going to go around. Member Walker, did you hear me?
Sorry, I could not hear you.
Okay, we are voting on approving 8.1 to place it on an upcoming agenda. How do you vote?
Nay.
Okay, Member Brown?
Yes.
Member Fortney?
Nay.
And I am an aye on that one. So the motion carries. Item 2, 8.2, submitted by Member Brown, presented by me, Beth Hatcher, a discussion and decision with the future governing board vote regarding Cave Creek Unified School District 93 to end its membership with the Arizona School Board Association, ASBA, as they are a member of the National School Board Association, NSBA Federation. And as such, their policy and politics may not be in the best interest of Cave Creek Unified School District 93, our students, teachers, staff, and families within our distinct boundary area. At the time of submission, there have now been 20 states that have made statements to withdraw from the NSBA due to the national organization's current focus not aligning with local stakeholders. Unfortunately, Arizona is not one of these states that has announced their intentions to leave the NSBA. All righty. The recommendation is that the board take the following action. Vote to approve placement on an upcoming agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. It's been moved in second to approve item 8.2 as presented. Again, roll call vote. Member Brown?
Yes.
Member Fortney?
No.
I'm a no. Member Busby?
Yes.
Member Walker?
Nay.
Okay, that one fails. Item 8.3, submitted by Member Janet Busby, presented by me, Beth Hatcher. All right, pursuant to ARS 15-914, the district is obligated to perform an annual financial and compliance audit to evaluate whether the district is in substantial compliance with the uniform system of financial records for Arizona school districts. The independent assessment of compliance with stated criteria could affect the acquisition, protection, use, and disposition of the district's resources and the quantity, quality, timeliness, and cost of services the district produces and delivers. It is my request and recommendation, based on requests from stakeholders, that Ccusd contract with an independent agency to conduct a performance audit, which is a much broader audit than the annual compliance audit. The compliance audit does not assess whether district programs or functions are working as intended to achieve stated goals. The performance audit is much more comprehensive and includes effectiveness, economy, and efficiency of programs, in addition to compliance with legal requirements. In light of the non-passage of the recent bond initiative, it is now increasingly more important for the district to ensure absolute financial transparency to the community. Without the complete trust and support of our stakeholders, future ballot initiatives will likely struggle for support. It is requested this agenda item, if approved by the board, appear on a future board agenda no later than January 24th, 2022. All right. All right, the recommendation is that the board take the following action. Vote to approve placement on an upcoming agenda. Is there a motion to approve item 8.3 as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded to approve 8.3 as presented. Roll call vote. Member Busby, would you like to begin? It's yours.
Yes.
Okay. Member Walker?
Nay.
Member Brown?
Yes.
Member Fortney?
Nay.
And I'm a nay. That one fails. Let's see. Item 8.4, submitted by member
Can I interrupt you for a second? Can I just withdraw that because what I was asking for in there was already presented?
So you're withdrawing the proposal? Okay. So 8.3 is withdrawn. All right, 8.4, submitted by member Janet Busby, presented by me, Beth Hatcher. The recent election resulted in a no vote on the bond. At this time, it is proposed the board immediately begin the process to review the district.
That's when I withdrew.
Oh, sorry, you're withdrawing 8.4. All right, let me make my notes correct. Sorry, 8.5. Submitted by member Janet Busby, presented by me, Beth Hatcher. A discussion to evaluate the employee exit interview process, forms utilized, and feedback received from all staff members leaving Ccusd employment. Additionally, discuss allowing the governing board access to all exit interview comments and information. The intent is to ensure the governing board has accurate and complete information which will benefit and assist the board decision-making, as well as ensuring there is no negative recourse toward any employee who leaves the district employment regardless of reason. It is requested this agenda item, if accepted by the board, appear on a future agenda by January 24th, 2022. Okay. The recommendation is that the board will take the following action. Vote to approve placement on an upcoming agenda. Is there a motion to approve 8.5 as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded to approve item 8.5 as presented. Roll call vote.
Yes.
Member Walker, your turn.
Yay.
You said
Aye.
Okay.
You need me?
And Member Brown,
Yes.
Member Fortney.
No.
I'm a no on that, and the motion carries. And Member Walker, you are clear that we skipped 8.4, right?
Yes, we're on
Okay,
8.5.
all right. Okay, good. All right. Item 9, upcoming calendar events. Dr. Monroe, do you have anything you'd like to
President Hatcher, members of the board, next week is a well-deserved Thanksgiving break for our students and for our staff, the 24th to the 26th. We also have winter break, which is looming on December the 20th. We'll be at the semester mark, and school will resume on January the 3rd.
All right. Item 10, adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
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 Abstain, motion, sorry, meeting adjourned.